Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rahul Binoy, and I'm the event head and your host for today, representing ASMA. ASMA stands for Adoption of Social Media in Academia, is the leading global community in academia catering to all the segments of education sector, comprising of schools, preschools, higher education, government bodies, and corporate houses. ASMA in itself is a knowledge sharing platform that helps to uncover the latest insights, anticipating future trends, and providing a transformative social media framework. Today is the second day of our mega event, Global Leadership in Education. I'd like to thank our academic partner, Force School of Management. Also, I'd like to thank our engagement partner, FMA Digital, and AI partner, Orion Robotics. Now, I'd request the backend team to play a short video from our academic partner, Force School of Management. Wonderful. Thank you so much to for supporting us in this event. With that being said, let's move on to the first panel discussion of the day. And I'd request the audiences to keep themselves engaged by dropping down their questions in the chat box for our speakers to take up. The topic of discussion is the role artificial intelligence plays in improving student outcomes. And I'd like to warmly welcome the eminent speakers we have in here today with us, starting from Dr. Ranendra N. Saha. He's the acting Vice-Chancellor of BITS Pilani. Dr. Saha has more than 33 years of teaching, research, and administrative experience. He's also a Senate and Research Board member of BITS Pilani. In his long career, Dr. Saha has held several administrative positions before being appointed Director of BITS Pilani Dubai campus. He was head Department of Pharmacy, in charge of doctoral program, Dean of Faculty, Dean of Educational Development Division, Deputy Director, Administration of BITS Pilani campus, Deputy Director, Research and Educational Development of BITS Pilani University, and driving research agendas for all four campuses of BITS Pilani. Dr. Saha has been awarded with Shri B.K. Birla and Srimati Sarla Birla Chair Professorship at BITS Pilani Pharmacy Professional of the Year 2013 and Best Pharmacy Teachers Awards. We welcome you, Saha. Thank you so much for joining us. Then we have Dr. A. Govardhan. He's the Pro Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad. He is presently a professor of computer science and engineering, as well as principal at Jawaharlal Nehru, and an executive council member of Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad. He holds a BA and from Osmania University College of Engineering and MTech from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University. Dr. Govardhan has held several academic and administrative positions, including Director of School of Information Technology, Director of Evaluation from Jawaharlal. Thank you so much for joining us, Govardhan, sir. Next, we have Professor Ajay Rana. He's the Vice Chancellor of Shobhit University. He's an educationist, a teacher by heart, an innovator, strategist, and a committed philanthropist. Professor Rana is chairman of AUN Research Labs, executive committee member of IEEE Uttar Pradesh section, senior member of IEEE, and life member of Computer Society of India and ISTE. He is also a member of the editorial board and review committee of several journals. Professor Rana has 72 patents under his name in the field of IoT, network, and sensors. He has published more than 288 research papers in reputed journals. Dr. Ajay Rana has been honored with numerous awards and recognition for his extraordinary work in the field of education and research, including the Lifetime Achievement Award, Frontiers of Knowledge Award, Leadership Award bricks, to name a few. Thank you so much for joining us, Ajay, sir. Then we have Dr. Shrihari Prakash Honwad, President of Sri Sir Padampat Singhania University. He has 15 years of experience in teaching. He's a B in chemical engineering from Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani, and an ME and PhD in chemical engineering from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Professor Honwad is a fellow of the Energy Institute, UK, and a senior research fellow of the Indian Institute of Science. He's also a chartered engineer and chartered energy engineer. He previously served as Vice-Chancellor of GT Goenka University, Gurgaon, and was associated with University of Petroleum and Engineering Energy Studies as Vice-Chancellor, Dean, Professor, and Campus Director between 2009 and 2017. Thank you so much for joining us, Honwad, sir. Thank you. The moderator of this August panel will be Dr. Uma Ganesh, founder of 5F World, NES Chairman, Global Talent Track. She has 3 decades of success in corporate and entrepreneurial ventures covering manufacturing, media, banking, and IT sectors. She has an MBA from the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, and a PhD from IIT Bombay. Ganesh was the Chief Corporate Development Officer of HSBC Global Resourcing before she founded the education and corporate solutions company Global Talent Track in 2008. Also, she regularly writes in the Financial Express on digital impact and skills-related subjects. She has co-authored a book with Dr. Ganesh Natarajan entitled Unleashing the Knowledge Force. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Over to you, Uma ma'am. You may take up the discussion forward now.
Thank you, Rahul, for the welcome address and introducing all of us. I'm indeed very excited to be part of this panel today with such eminent speakers who have in-depth experience in the domains of education and, of course, a lot of exposure and also experience in different facets of technology. What is really something that is standing out is that I'm in the midst of senior academicians, rather those who are at the helm of affairs of academic institutions. While I'm not someone who has had the opportunity to be in the same set of shoes as all of you have had the opportunity to be in. Over the last, I would say, 2.5 decades, I've had the good fortune to interact very closely with academic institutions right from the time I was the CEO for Z Education, and thereafter, through the years, has been intimately connected with educational institutions and have been able to train more than 500,000 young people from various educational institutions for their technology careers, for employability, and so on. So these insights and experience have certainly given me some ideas around how academic institutions are reorienting themselves and preparing themselves for the digital era. Some of the institutions are already there, and some of the institutions are getting there in terms of technology, in terms of readiness of their faculty, in terms of reorienting their learning and training methodology, education methodology, and of course, most importantly, understanding how the corporate world is evolving and how every dimension of a society, of an economy, is really being impacted by digital technologies, and particularly AI in the recent times. Many of the institutions have already figured out how they need to think differently in terms of mobilizing their students, connecting with their specific needs, or for that matter, even enabling the faculty to be able to customize their own education and to ensure that the students who come into the universities, whether physically or virtually, they are able to now, of course, be able to deliver based on their capability. So that's something very heartening to know. But as I said, in this journey, which has just begun, there is quite a bit of excitement and enthusiasm around use of AI in education. So on the one hand, there is a lot of fascination, and on the other hand, at least in some quarters, um, because we use some digital technologies or apps which are readily available, some of us tend to feel that we are already AI enabled. But as many of you would be certainly aware about evolution of AI, we are just about in the very, very early stages of AI, even in the context of application and use for commercial purposes. So when it comes to education sector, we have quite a long way to go. Not only because the technology is new, it's also because the investment involved in building AI applications is significant. Despite all of these, I'm sure in many of your institutions, you have already initiated some steps. So without further ado, I would like to invite each one of you to actually share your current experience in using AI if you have already started off on that journey. And if you have not, I'm sure you have been observing around your institution what is the potential, what are the ways in which you may or may not want to bring in AI into the education system. Because obviously there are disadvantages and advantages of every technology. So also AI has got its limitations. So it'll be fantastic to hear your perspectives on this subject for the benefit of everybody here. So may I first request Dr. Saha to share your perspectives, Dr. Saha, having uh, lived and taught and managed BITS Pilani in Dubai, which is surrounded by several institutions which probably have access to a lot of technologies. And so you might also be able to comment on some of those experiences that you might have had. And of course, we would be very eager to know what is the strategy that BITS is actually working towards in terms of incorporating AI and related technologies in the context of education. Over to you, Dr. Saha.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Uma, and my co-panelists. It is obviously pleasure to get opportunity at this. I'll not take on the basic introduction. Before I speak what is done or going to be done, first to understand what is the opportunity. I think the topic is a very, very important, I tell you. AI is going to impact education, no doubt. And my own perception, it is going to be a big change in education, the role of AI. Whether we accept or not, it has to be there. What are the areas? I will say basically 5 broad areas say where there is a very, very important role of AI. The first one, I will say personalized education. We have heard the personalized medicine today, but it is going to be personalized education. What I mean, see, when I teach a class, I still teach students. It is always happens, some students are more advanced or some students are a little weak. As we progress, they are not also moving at the same speed. But problem is that how to accommodate all in a place. If I little slow, highly advanced people will be little frustrated. If I go little fast along with the top students, then the people who are behind, they will be remaining much behind. I think AI plays an important role to assess each individual student and recommend that what measures can be taken, or it can be even planned that approach of learning and teaching should be slightly different for such people. That is where I am saying is a personalized education for different students by different way. Second one is I'm going to the producing the smart content. Today, many of us content is PPT and other things, but I think AI can help us to create a smart content. Third point I'll tell, the tutoring the students. I am teaching today, several universities, Pilani has a system, tutors, which take in tutorial. I think there the AI can play a very important role to tutor students according to their individual ability or depth of knowledge. As I said, in a same batch, there can be different. So who needs, he can always get a tutoring from the artificial intelligence. Fourth one is education for the special needs people. I think today it is a very, very problem for the special needs students that there is no different system is there. I think AI can be a very, very useful one for that one. The fifth one is offering lifelong learning. Though we say always a person has to be lifelong learning, but the university plays a role and many universities are unable to provide that one. I think AI can play a role for a lifelong education. And why I'm telling you, even if you have the access to the UNESCO document, you can see UNESCO document long back suggested the importance of AI in 5 areas. One of these is the educational management. Second one, it says the learning of the students. Third one is this teaching and the teacher's ability. Fourth one is this lifelong study. And the fifth one is the overall utilization of that for the manpower development. So this is where I'm telling you that whether we accept or not, university will adapt it. All top level universities are also adapting. As Dr. Umar said, what Pilani is thinking, yes, Pilani already have taken this cue and involved. I tell you some 2-3 years back, Pilani created a artificial intelligence center, which is established by the about 8 crores rupees donation from 2 alumni, husband, wife, Anuradha and Prashant Parikkal AppCare, that is Anuradha Prashant Parikkal Center for Artificial Intelligence and Research. The main center has been created in our Goa campus, but satellite center have been created in Hyderabad, Pilani, and Dubai campus, where they are working in many such areas, particularly identification of the student's ability, gradation. They can be used also gradation of the students, that how the students performing, and even many manual work like gradation, evaluation, even many evaluation, first question type of evaluation can be done by artificial intelligence. So Pilani centers are working on that area, and some of these things are utilized for our internal purpose or sharing with others. So I'll stop it at this moment. Further question and answer session, I can provide more information. Thank you, Dr. Uma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saha, for setting that context and so beautifully summarizing some of the key advantages that AI can deliver for education. And you also highlighted very beautifully as to how it is going to be inevitable, that whether we like it or not, AI is slowly creeping into education system, and therefore we got to get ready for how do we put AI to use. So on that note, I would like to now turn to Dr. Govardhan. And in fact, it is really wonderful that all the panelists this time around have said they don't want to use their PPTs. So it gives us a lot of flexibility for us to really have a very interactive session, and hope we will have opportunity to have some questions also taken in due course. So Dr. Govardhan, I would like you to please address this question that is topmost in the minds of most of our educationers. That is, with technology creeping into education, and particularly after COVID, every university, whether or not they had thought about using technology as a medium for delivery, all the education institutions and students and faculty, all of the stakeholders have accepted that this is the way forward. So having tasted that sort of an experience, do you really think our faculty are fully equipped to deal with the phenomenon of AI Because even with using Zoom or Microsoft Teams and so on and so forth, our faculty have only changed the place of delivery from a physical classroom to a mode like Zoom. But with AI coming in, they will have to rethink their role. They will have to rethink how learning will have to be delivered. At the same time, we have students who are coming in from first generation, students who are in their families, first generation learners who are coming into colleges and universities. So they have certain expectations about how education will have to be delivered. So we have stakeholders who are both not fully there, but we have to take them along in the journey. And they can't be a better person than yourself, because under JNTU, there are so many colleges and you are dealing with a wide variety, wide profiles of faculty and students. So would like to hear from you, Dr. Govardhan. What are your thoughts on this important question?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad is the first technological university in the country besides IITs and NITs. And we are an affiliating technological university. We have around 200 plus colleges under our university. We have engineering colleges, pharmacy, MCA, and MBA colleges. Around 70,000 plus students come out, graduate every year. And as you rightly mentioned, the entire education system is under evolution. The change is the continuous, phenomenon which happens, particularly in terms of the education. And we as the teachers are the brand ambassadors of this change, which will also bring progress in the humanity. And from that perspective, we have moved from the conventional classroom face-to-face teaching mode to a blended mode. Uh, Initially, after this COVID pandemic, we have completely shifted to online mode. And after some time, once we could recover from this pandemic, then we have approached and we have adapted this blended mode of learning. And as you mentioned, in terms of the affiliating university, and where we see wide variety of students come in. And when it comes to the teaching learning paradigms, teaching learning patterns of the teachers and students, then this AI is no doubt a lot of patterns can be evolved, and a lot of analytics can be done. A lot of deep learning can also be applied in those lines, so that the student learning patterns can be captured first. Then we can analyze them, and subsequently we can also suggest their modes of teaching, their progress of teaching. Accordingly, we will be able to guide the students in the best way possible. In the conventional mode, it is not possible to monitor the students one by one, whereas by using the technology would be able to do that. That's how the paradigms are coming, like personalized learning, wherein we can will be able to interact with the students individually, and we can also guide them based on the progress that they are tracking. So from that perspective, we have actually instructed all our affiliating universities to adopt the online teaching first, and identify the best LMS, so that the entire life cycle of learning can be done by using this ICT and some of the important tools and technologies which are available. And most of the colleges have already started adopting them, and they are also in the process of using the technology in terms of the developing the analytics about the students. Initially, capturing their data first, and subsequently making the analysis in terms of their performance, in terms of the results that they have, and accordingly this process is going on. Besides the individual colleges perspectives, we also do at the university level. Once we conduct the exam, once we see their performance in the examinations, then we also always see, besides what has been mentioned in the recent national education policy, or in the context of the Industry 4.0 and Education 4.0 will also concentrate on the outcome-based education, applying this Bloom's taxonomy, and would also analyze the performance of the students from time to time. So, in my opinion, the technology is being adopted first, but we'll have to make full use of the technology that is available. So we're picking up few portions of the technology, but we'll have to make the fullest extent possible. So in my opinion, this technology can be used in threefold. One is to really look at the IQ levels of the students first, like what we do in the psychometric analysis of the students. And once we capture their interest and their IQ levels, then we'll be able to motivate them, inspire them to see that their tests match. Now that you have the flexible curriculum, so that we can really motivate the students to take up the areas of interest that the students like. And second thing is about the technology aspects. So as rightly mentioned by the other speakers, so today the trend is that what we study, and by the time students come out, the technologies may change, the paradigms may change, and students should be in a position to adapt the new technologies. So anytime, anywhere learning on the fly, and learning life cycle, like learn, unlearn, and relearn. So this should be realized by the students, and that's the second thing where AI and ICT can help us. And the third important dimension is about the skill set. The skill set would also change from time to time. What various industry bodies or the various reports that deliver, like these are the skill set required at this present point in time. But by the time the students come, next batch of the students come, the skill set may also change. So how to reorient ourselves? So the students should be guided and motivated in terms of on-the-fly learning, and also to shape them and their readiness towards the requirements from time to time. So ICT and this AI would definitely help them in understanding their patterns of learning, and also in terms of their performance, and how to reshape themselves from time to time. So getting adapted themselves to the new technologies and improving themselves. So some of these practices have already been initiated by our university, and we are also keenly observing how the progress is there, and we are also suggesting them from time to time to see that the technology should be used in the fullest extent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Govardhan. You have been spot on in terms of highlighting how the technology, when used properly, effectively, can enable the student to enhance their performance, to remain updated with their relevant skills, and also personalize their learning requirements. While these are definitely the advantages, and while we definitely see the benefit of, let's say, virtual teaching assistants, which are being tried out in various universities, including BITS and other several universities around the world. The question really remains one of how much of this sort of personalization also means intruding into the privacy of the students. A lot of times, in our traditional classrooms, we have these so-called backbenchers who are just coming there, sitting there. They want to be ignored. They would come in if they feel like, they will walk away if they don't feel like. So they had all of that flexibility, and the teacher in the classroom might sometimes give a glare at them, but then they would leave it to them. But in today's world, or rather in tomorrow's world, with AI, we are going to know, we have the ability to know every moment that the student is part of the learning process, their modes, their styles, their likes, their dislikes. So while as education institution, we may want to personalize learning, as an individual, they may feel intimidated in a sense that there is someone who's watching me all the time. So I would like to turn to Dr. Shrihari for your views on this delicate question of how do you think we as academicians and education providers need to address two sides of this coin called AI. Over to you, Dr. Shrihari.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. After Dr. Saha's outlining, I realized there is hardly anything left to speak for any of us. he made a very comprehensive this thing. So I was just wondering, and you have rightfully drawn me into the classroom. And it's such a fantastic opportunity to use AI in a classroom. Teachers have those instincts. They know whom to point out and whom to ask a question and at what time. And there is no way we can model it and we can tell that this is the basis on which these decisions get taken, and then the speed with which they are taken. It's essentially a teacher's brain which has been trained over the years based on the responses and the facial expressions and things that happen in a classroom, that all that input has gone in. And it would be wonderful to train an AI system and put a camera on top, which will continuously feed this information to the teacher for the simple reason. The benefits would be that if my lecture is going on getting boring, if majority of my students are not understanding this part of my lecture, and if I receive a warning, I might probably redo it and help. Let's look at the backbenchers a little later, but help the middle benchers, who get easily bored, and you may lose those middle benchers. In fact, a couple of decades ago, we had an analysis of, in a 1 hour lecture, how many students really understand everything that we have said. And we came to a conclusion that if it is anywhere between 5 to 6 students in a class of typical, our classrooms are 60, you have done a wonderful lecture. I think that was and the rest of the students will understand eventually and progressively, because they will go back and discuss with their friends. So many interactions will happen. Now, imagine if this can help me capture the students. Invariably, teachers tend to, address the middle of the classroom. And in the process, you lose all your bright students, saying teacher is doing something very mundane. Why is he wasting time? And the backbenchers, anyway, for them it's over the head transmission, so they lose out. But let me also assure you, ma'am, that the backbenchers are not really not interested. They are not interested in learning the way we are trying to teach them. I think we have failed to recognize, because we have only one opportunity to spend that 60 minutes in the classroom, in which we go blah, 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 and we expect everybody. I have said everything that was required to be said, so now everybody should know everything that is required to be known. I think that sage on stage model, which we all go back and are now complaining that it's failed, I think we can improve that model considerably, particularly because now we are looking at different models. We are looking at flipping the classroom. We are looking at collaborative learning. And in the process, if AI can give me an instantaneous input as to which groups are lagging behind and which groups are this thing, I think it will improve the efficiency of the teacher like nobody's business. And I'm sure a similar, if we extend it further, a teacher may be able to do an online teaching to 100 students, 200 students simultaneously, as long as he continuously keeps getting this inputs, because each student is facing a camera, and a lot of data points can be gathered from there, and he can improve his live lecture. And if it is asynchronous mode, Dr. Saha has already indicated, it can be extremely personalized formation. We keep talking about developing, critical thinking skills. And whenever you are trying to, bring in that, the feedback or AI-enabled this thing can really work wonders for the teacher. A lot of mundane work which the teacher does, correcting assignments and then deciding how students are doing, etc. If it gets automated through AI reasonably well, I'm sure a teacher's reach, today we say a class of 40 is optimal for a teacher. And class of 40 is not economically viable. So we all have classes of 60. Imagine, and this is all because how much work a teacher can do, how many assignments can he correct, how many faces can he be looking at simultaneously in a classroom. All these things can get multiplied by very large numbers. And one thing what we are now looking at is if NEP is targeting 50% graduate enrollment ratios, how will that happen? How will that happen? Because if you increase the number of institutions and then the infrastructure, etc., education is not going to be affordable to all. When you increase, you really need to bring down the cost. Bringing down the cost, this is one way of what I see is bringing down the cost. Make the teacher available to more and more students, and with the help of AI, we can do. I mean, I'm repeating Dr. Saha's summary. We can do personalized. We can help the teacher. We can help evaluate. We can help organizations, the institutions to change their strategies, like Dr. Govardhan talked about. Changes in skills as can be captured very quickly, and see how we are delivering the outcomes. I think AI that way is a boon. I hope I have stayed with the question you posed. I may have diverted a little bit, but we can always come back and talk about other questions which you will raise back.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Honwad, for that very passionate appeal for how AI could dramatically transform the learning experience. And indeed, especially those backbenchers, as you rightly said, are backbenchers because probably learning is not exciting for them. Can AI bring...
we teach them is not exciting for them. They would like to learn in a different fashion, because now we all have realized that everybody does not learn in the same fashion.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, keeping aptitudes aside, even the learning styles are different from student to student. Maybe we will have to come up with evaluation styles also, which are compatible with different students, and then we still are able to certify that the outcomes have been achieved.
Of course, yes, indeed. So yes, we have a lot of work to do on the entire academic framework, along with the introduction of AI at multiple levels. So we are finding on the one hand that because of the very excitement of technology, there is an estimated $3.7 billion worth market waiting to be tapped by those who are looking at AI tools for higher education. At the same time, when we look at the Indian context, and we look at, until recently, we have been talking about digital divide. And now probably we are entering into an era where there will be AI divide, particularly between those institutions, universities, which have more resources at their disposal, and younger institutions or institutions in the remote areas who may not have not only the financial resources, but also the acumen to build this sort of AI tools. So in that context, Dr. Rana, I would like to turn to you to seek your views on how do you think industry, government, academic institutions, technology providers, what kind of partnerships, models you think we need to consider in order for us to make AI mainstream for majority of the students and faculty? Over to you, Professor Rana.
Thank you, Dr. Oma Ganesh. It's my honor to be the part of the forum. Thank you for inviting me about such eminent personalities. With respect to your point of view, my concern is that before pandemic, our IT comfort zone or our IT literature survey is only 39 to 41%. But we are so thankful to the government of India and our initiative. Now our literacy rate that may be increased around 63 to 70%. So we think how the technology may change and how the entire system may change with respect to the demand and with respect to the adoption of technologies. We are the Indians who assume that whenever we have some pressurize or when we have some crisis, we are very fast to learn the latest technologies and the resources. So we are witness about all these things, how the entire education system may be changed, how the government of India, how the local partner, and how the vendors, or you say that about the service providers, help across the different sectors. Now, with respect to government and the private and the education society, there's the one word in the computer science or layman language, abstraction and the encapsulation. Same is applicable to the AI. As a teacher, our aim is to like how to drive a car, not to manufacture a car. So we are the professors or the teachers to adopt these technologies for the betterment of our future leader. And remember, Dr. Uma, these persons right now, not from India or the small part, they are representing the talent across the globe. Now, education is very limited. Education or the technology on your tips. So concern is that education system NEP or Sir said that education 4.0, according to NESCOM or the SOCHM, industry moved towards industry 5.0. What about next? We are in education 4.0. Now the IT industry moved to the industry 5.0. So that is about the fancy word. Here we are more focused towards the future leaders, means education on demand. Education on demand means there are a lot of facilities, but is these facilities are available or the government or the local bodies, they are trained their future leaders, they are educate the teachers, they are educate the local bodies or they are educate the other thing. So there's the one loophole with respect to the entire system. We as a teacher or as an industry responsibility educate the small schools or the other thing, yes, that is the demand of AI, that is the role of AI. Today, Dr. Uma, we are here on AI. Someday you will find deep learning. Someday you will find data centers or machine learning. To be honest, as I am the IT professional, they are there different words, subsectors. So we are educate them. As an industry, like from education point of view, during pandemic, ma'am, you are surprised that industry hire more than 30% staff. Their recruitment process with respect to industry is more as compared to the other point of view. How that may be happen? Because the HR cost, because the person, those who travel from one location to other location to hire the student from the campus recruitment. Now they complete the entire process within a 1 or 2 day. And earlier that take around 1 month. Now the company have a full time. Now parents, ma'am, that is a very important point with the help of AI. We are so thankful to our industry partner. Now the parents identify the performance of their kids. Is my kid is aware to join the class or not? Like the backbenchers, sir, during pandemic, I think, Shrihari sir, we are witness that the backbenchers, the middle person, they are scoring more than 85% marks. So we are not here that criticize to them, but their parents, their grandparents. Dr. Uma, we are realized that during the AI, we are AI or the technology. As a person, I use the AI. Sometimes we use the deep learning. Their grandparents or the parents, they are keenly interested to see the performance of their kids. Sometimes they come during the classroom. Beta, what is the going on? Can I interact with your teacher? Can I interact with the student? So how that may be possible? We are not here educate the future leader. We are here educate our grandparents and their parents how they use the technology. Now, if you go with the Indian scenario, earlier we said to our kids, do not go with the laptops or mobile phone, use less laptops, mobile phone, all these things. What about the current scenario? We educate our kids, beta, spend at least 8 hours on your class, go and please attend your class, take my mobile phone, I give the tab, new tab, I give the mobile phone to you, but please attend the class. Now the second class kid, ma'am, the primary kid is about the kinder KG kids. They are more familiar about the technology. How it is possible? That may be possible only and only for the involvement of their parents and involvement of their family. Because we say that what about the first education institution? First education institution is your family. Now, if the family take an interest, that is now from your channel, I give the one because you said about the government involvement. Dr. Uma, I said like the government, Modi government or the other government give the free of cost ration to all of them. They give the free of cost travel allowances to them. They give the many free things. But why not the government of India give the free of cost bandwidth to the students? Those who are from class 12 or UKG, because the per month, the bandwidth cost is around 1,000 or 500. So from your channel, I give the one tagline to you and your entire system. The government think those students, those who go with the college or schools, give at least 5 GB data per day. So there is no extra burden on the parent side. With respect to infrastructure, with respect to resources, if we are able to provide the telecommunication to the Leh and Ladakh, or Northeast, or Jammu and Kashmir to the Kanyakumari, why we are not educate the all students across the country with the help of these technology? So that is from my point of view. Like in my university, we conducted many faculty recruitments with the help of AI. Here we find out the entire scenario about their current location and about the what type of question that we asked. We capture all these information with the help of Dr. Google. Sometimes we ask the one question, the person is not write down on the laptop and make answer. With the help of Dr. Google, we identify all these things. That is the beauty of the AI and the technology. When we recruit any student from our university, we upload them. Okay, you have the 5-minute video. Please we give the 5 question to them. Why you joined Shobhit University? What about your career perspective? So 5 question to predefine to them. With the help of mobile, with the help of all these things, the student take the mobile phone like this or the laptop, or they recorded their entire lecture and upload these lectures on our portal. My psychologist, my professor from the different department, they identify what type of leadership they have, what type of body language the student have, what type of the approach the student have, positive or negative. So how it is possible that the entire thing possible due to only and only the latest technology? Here I give the one one point from your side. And second point, one is the government, second one the parents. Always educate your kids and your society, not about the student, but the others. How they use the technology for the betterment of our society. And here our society is not about the one region or India, but that is the Mother Earth. Thank you, Dr. Uma, and thank you to all my esteemed panelists, those who are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rana. That was very well articulated, particularly about the need for providing bandwidth. That's a creative suggestion that you have made. And yes, indeed, during pandemic, we have heard many instances, many students not really being able to take advantage of online training or virtual classes because either the bandwidth was not available, it was connectivity itself was not there, or it was unaffordable for many families given the job loss situation. So yes, your suggestion will go a very long way in bridging the AI gap that we spoke about. Thank you very much for that suggestion. In the last 10 minutes or so that we have, I would like to now go quickly around each one of our speakers and invite them to share their thoughts on a specific question I would like to pose to each one of them. Kindly take 1 or 2 minutes to share your thoughts on this question. Firstly, I'd like to move to Dr. Saha. Dr. Saha, we have heard through the last 50, 40, 45 minutes, everybody has expounded about the advantages, the benefits of AI. I would now like to take the opposite position and raise this question about the concern many academicians have and parents have, that possibly by packaging and presupposing and proactively providing what we think the learners require, would we be taking away the creative juices from the students? Would we be making them, getting them into a situation where they just do not have to use their mind much and just go with the flow of things like we are all experiencing Flipkart or Google, or for that matter, Amazon. I mean, just because you have gone and searched on a page, travel to Jamaica, then they keep throwing at you all the travel exciting locations around Jamaica, for instance. And so you stop thinking about maybe traveling to Russia or maybe traveling to Ladakh because your mind is now already focused around Jamaica, and that's getting reinforced. So, in the context of learners whose whole objective for coming to academic institutions is to open up their minds by introducing AI, would we be actually taking away their creativity? Your thoughts, Dr. Saha?
No, a very good, important question you have asked. I don't think that AI will replace the teaching things. First of all, keep in mind, the teaching concept has changed. What is today important is the teaching to create the thinking mind of the students. You know, today knowledge is so vast. You cannot give, for example, in our time, what knowledge was there 4 years taught. Today, knowledge is much more. You cannot expand the program to 5 years or 6 years. What is important to create the mind that they can start thinking of that one. You know, if the basic foundation is given, you can build the structure up of that. So that development is required, for which AI is going to be helpful. And whatever the examples you give, that is also outcome of thinking. So I think what is that a leading institute or any institute has to do to develop the thinking of the students. Rest he can earn on his own. If I give the basic mathematics, you can learn the better mathematics afterward also. I think AI is going to help in that aspect. So which will make more thinking ability of the student. Because as Dr. Shrihari mentioned, backbencher, I did not agree with him. When he said backbencher has gone. No, in my opinion, no student is bad. There can be bad teacher, but there is no bad student. So I think we require beyond the classroom to guide those students. They can start thinking. I think AI is supplementing the thinking ability, not replacing the teaching.
Fantastic, Dr. Saha. That's very well put. And I want to now move to Dr. Shrihari. I would like you to comment on what you think would be the way in which we need to build algorithm. Algorithm biases can create different kind of a tool, or as they say, you create a tool which really doesn't solve your problem, it creates new problems. So how do we avoid gender bias? How do you avoid biases based on data which might have been pertinent 5 years back or 10 years back, but no longer relevant today? But that's the data that is available to train the AI tool. Without training, AI is nothing. So how do you think educational institutions need to think about removing or minimizing algorithm biases?
Two things. It's not just data bias, which is time barred. I'm also sure that the data which is obtained in Hyderabad may not work in Pilani. I don't know. Sure. Because the data varies, particularly with the subcontinent, with so much of variation in terms of you go to South India. Yes and no are very different from what happens to a Punjabi. So even that is a bias which we need to overcome. But at the same time, a simple solution is these AI systems have to be continuously trained and upgraded using the data where they are being used also. Wherever there are aberrations, it's important to find out what went wrong and where it failed or where there was an error, even if minor, and continuously keep correcting it. That's essentially the science of AI, that the larger the data you have and the larger variety of data you have, the more powerful is the AI system. And since these things are also time variant, particularly since it's a social science, I mean, we are all coming from the hard sciences, where every time you do the experiment, you get the same result. In social sciences, every time you do the experiment, you get a different result, and that's permitted. So I understand that this can simply be taken into account by continuously, even while you are using AI to predict something, there is a simultaneous data acquisition which also should happen, and it should improve your AI further. That's one way of it. And the second part I would like to touch on is the individual creativity is never going to be lost. Even today, even in the era of we are not even on Facebook, we are on Instagram. The Instagram crowd will come and attend. Dr. Saha will tell me that in BITS Pilani, the popular professors' classes are attended by standing in the window, hanging from the windows, sitting on the floor at the platform. And I have seen that happening in 1982, and I'm sure 2022 also that will continue, because these are star performers and they will never lose that touch. And students do enjoy the way they bring out the subject, even if that does not serve their entire purpose. They say for the sheer enjoyment of sitting in those classrooms, students will come. So teacher is not going to become redundant. Teacher is going to really improve his skills, because he will have a lot more time to work on his performance, work on designing lessons and delivering them. That's what I see. It's going to be a boon to me. Of course, it's going to be disadvantages wherever we are hoping to increase the number of teachers, but then the same AI system can be used for training teachers.
Thank you, Dr.
So that will I think take care of the so-called disadvantages.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Govardhan, quickly, we would like to have your views. We are just running out of time. We would like to just hear from you. What do you think we should be doing to ensure that the student doesn't get intimidated and by all of these technologies, while technology gives them an opportunity to remain quote unquote faceless, but still it can be sometimes daunting. So what do you think we should do to put them at ease? Dr. Govardhan, please.
Yeah, in fact, the role of the technology is enormous. And if you look at the present generation, and they have high IQ levels, and they have, exceptional, extraordinary imaginative skills. However, their talent has to be channelized. And sometimes, as you mentioned, the backbenchers may not, come forward to ask questions publicly in open environment. But when it comes to the interactive mode, online mode, and wherein the students may not directly see them. So from that perspective, students can pose, the queries in chat box or privately can also be possible. So that is where they can come openly to interact with the instructor or a teacher or as an expert, with which they would be able to get the doubts clarified. That's one way. Second thing is the advantage that we have this technology is that, once the lecture is recorded and they have access to such kind of recorded expert lectures, they can listen to them as many times as possible. So that helps them a lot in, getting the doubts clarified, or, to develop their own expertise from time to time. That's how you see some of the backbenchers are doing exceptionally well, particularly in terms of the disruptive technologies. What we see in some of the cases, like the dropouts have become CEOs of the companies, and the first benchers have become employees of that company. So that's how we see some of the exceptional track records of the slow learners. So that would definitely, technology would definitely help them to understand the scenarios, and also to get themselves trained individually. So
thank you, Dr. Govardhan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I know we have completely, we are out of time, but Professor Rana, one word, can you please give for, if tomorrow we have to get started with AI in the context of teaching in your institution, what would be that one area? Please just give one sentence.
Industry on demand. or
Okay,
education on demand. Hence, you say that there is two word, industry and the academia. As a teacher, our product may be, they are not our client, they are our product. And product means whatever technology may be there. So education on demand right now, that is from my side. Thank you, Dr. Uma, and thank you, esteemed panelists. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Rana, and thank you very much, fellow panelists. It was really a very, very enjoyable, very productive interaction. So over to you, Rahul, for your closing remarks. And thank you once
Thank you
again
so
for
much.
the time spent with by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Uma.
Uma.
It was very well conducted. Good to see you, Dr. Saha and Dr. Rana.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was such an insightful and informative deliberation. And I'd like to thank all the eminent speakers for all their time and support. And Uma ma'am, you did a fabulous job moderating the whole session. And thank you so much, Honwad sir, Ajay sir, Saha sir, and Govardhan sir. Thank you all for joining us today in this discussion. It was an absolute pleasure hosting you all. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor Sinha. Thank you, Professor Shrihari sir, and thank you all. Govardhan ji, thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, before moving on to the second panel of the day, I'd like to invite Mr. Sachin Kumar, Associate Director, Client Relations, QSI Gauge, to give a small presentation. Over to you, Mr. Sachin.
Thank you, Rahul. Hope I am audible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahul. I'll just share my screen and then take the audience. Yes, now I can share my screen. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon once again. The topic is Indian rankings in the globe, Indian universities in the global rankings, and some observations and actions. And I will obviously talk from the perspective of QS World University Rankings and the Asia rankings that we have. To start with, the mission of the organization I represent, and that is to enable motivated people anywhere in the world to fulfill their potential by fostering educational achievement, international mobility, and career development. So learners or the students are at the center of everything that QS does, be it QS rankings or the ratings or any other products or solutions of the organization. Those who are not aware, QS as an organization has been there since 1990. The first project was to publish top MBA career guide, and now the organization was founded by Mr. Nunzio Quacquarelli, who is the CEO of the organization as of now. And we publish lots of rankings, especially the highly acclaimed and widely followed World University rankings, then lots of regional rankings like rankings for Asia, Arab region, Africa, and so on. And then we also doing the ratings of institutions across the world. We are rating universities and colleges with the help of QS Stars rating across the world, and then QSI Gauge rating in India that we are doing for last more than 3 years. Just to set the context, I'll share the methodology of QS World University Rankings. So we give 40% weightage to academic reputation, 10% weightage to employer reputation, 20% weightage to faculty student ratio, then citations per faculty, another 20%, and then 5% each to international faculty and international students. So I will not get into the details of it. This is just to share, as you know, how do we publish the rankings so that we can use this slide as a reference point for the further observations when it comes to performance of Indian institutions. Asia rankings methodology, though some tweakings are there, we have added a few parameters like staff with PhD, exchange students, international student and faculty, and then international research network. But as you can see, internationalization and research remains at the center of the rankings of QS, be it World University or the regional rankings. Some observations related to the performance of Indian higher education institutions in the latest published QS World University rankings, which were published in the month of June 2021. So we do not have any university in top 100. In top 200, we have 3 Indian institutions. We have 8 institutions in top 500, and then 12 institutions in top 600. 18 institutions in top 80, top 800, and 22 institutions in top 1000 of QS World University rankings. And notably, there are 3 private universities in the list of top 1000 of QS World University rankings. If we further expand the base and if we look at the other rankings that we are publishing, we have overall 52 universities which are ranked in one or the other subjects of QS World University rankings by subject, 10 universities in the QS World Global Employability rankings, 96 universities in Asia rankings, 6 universities in global MBA rankings, and there are 11 QS stars rated institutions that we have in the country. So this is the current performance and scenario of Indian higher education institutions with respect to QS rankings or QS stars ratings. Now, if we look at the first half of the methodology, which I had shown on one particular slide, academic and employer reputation gets around 50% weightage together. Now, some observations related to the participants from India. So overall, we got 1,30,110 responses from the academicians from across the world, and they had nominated overall 5,909 universities from different parts of the world. If you look at the circle of India, and though I have not mentioned the percentage over here, but it is very small, and approximately 2% of the overall responses came from India, 2% responses of academicians. Now the employer reputation survey, that gets around 10% weightage in world university rankings, and then different and increased weightages when it comes to subject rankings and global MBA rankings. We got the responses of 75,000 employers, nominating around 5,542 universities. And again, if you look at the circle on India, it's not too big, and we didn't get very encouraging response from the employers when it comes to the employer survey, on the basis of which we publish the rankings. Now, looking at some of the action points basis on the data that we have just seen. So concentrated effort to get at least 10% of our 12 lakh educators to participate in the global academic survey. So if you look at the overall responses, not many academicians are actually participating in the surveys that we conduct for generating the academic reputation index. We certainly need to increase that. What you can do as an institute is to encourage your faculty members to participate more and more, so that we can have more representation, as we understand that an Indian academician is more likely to have a better understanding of a fellow academic institute, and there are better chances of being nominated. If we look at the employer survey, again, the responses were negligible. If we can increase it by 8 to 10 times, or at least we can encourage all your partner employers, those who are coming to your institutions, to participate and respond to the survey, definitely it will help in the participating universities in global rankings. Alignment of the NIRF with methodology of QS World University rankings. Somewhere it has to be aligned, because there are almost the same kind of universities are aspiring to be in the global rankings. So it will certainly help them. And the last point is, every university should establish an office of rankings and benchmarking. Needless to say, and I don't think I can emphasize enough of this, until you have a focus group which can actually help the institutions when it comes to identify the benchmarks and help them in global rankings, it's highly unlikely that they will be able to move forward with this. Direct research impact, the second part of rankings that we have. Rahul, you need to give me 3 or 4 more minutes to complete the presentation actually. The second part of the rankings methodology, that is papers and citations. This is the average location wise performance of academic institutions when it comes to papers and citations. India is somewhere closer to Thailand, but when you look at the kind of higher education sector in India, it's far bigger, and which we can certainly improve that. This is the performance of some of the institutions, those who have improved over the last year. We have ISC Bangalore far ahead from the rest, and then a few IITs and a few central government universities and VIT which have significantly improved their papers as well as the citations part. Year on a year comparison on the performance of various indicators that we have in QS World University rankings. In most of the parameters, the institutions from India have not done better than the last year. So we have actually gone down in terms of the performance of the academic institutions. If we look at the institutions which are ranked in top 500 of QS Asia rankings, their performance has certainly improved, both in terms of published papers and both in terms of citations. Now again, some action points for improving the research and publications part. Timing start now because the government is focusing on it, and as an institute also you need to set your priorities right. If you are trying to be in global rankings or you're trying to improve your performance in global rankings, you actually need to start focusing on it at this point of time. Collaboration, be it the internal collaboration amongst various departments when it comes to joint research, interdepartmental research, or the collaboration between different universities, or the collaboration between with the institutions outside India, collaborations abroad. That is again the key. Strict on scopus on or web of science when it comes to publishing of the papers. Focus on the right content types. Stay within affiliation cap as we have some guidelines in the Asia rankings with respect to that. Promote arts and humanities. Most of the research is coming from science and engineering and allied areas. We need to focus more on arts and humanities to publish it. And then the last point in this part is branding and visibility of research. You may be doing fantastic job, but then you need to publicize it as well. You need to actually tell the world that you're doing fantastic research, and then you can probably reach out to the academicians and academic fraternity as a whole outside India as well. This is the last slide actually, path towards excellence. These are general recommendations for any university which is already there in the rankings, or they are trying to be in the rankings and trying to improve their performance. Increased collaboration and engagement to build a stronger brand and reputation for your university. That I believe is key when it comes to academic reputation and employer reputation. It is not important only from the perspective of QS rankings, but overall global rankings. Increase the number of publications. Definitely we need to focus on that. Host international conferences for academic research, marketing, and recruitment. So building a brand is actually a culmination of lots of activities you do, and this certainly is a very important aspect of that. Then develop your university's brand by making sure the information publicly accessible. Extremely important to increase the outreach and start marketing yourself. Enhance industry connections to improve employer reputation. You may be having lots of employers visiting your institute, but you need to encourage them to participate and respond to the surveys which are being sent by global rankings organizations to them. Hire international staff to make your university courses more accessible to international students. Again, this is extremely important because then only you will get more and more nominations from the academicians abroad once they start knowing your institute better in all the related aspects. So this was in brief about QS rankings, though it was almost impossible to actually cover all and each and every aspect of QS rankings, and probably at some other time we can get into the details of it. We are always available in case if you have any queries. For now, thank you very much, and thank you Rahulji and ASMA for having me here. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Sachin, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Let's jump on to the second panel of the day. The topic of discussion is understanding the intersection of innovation, technology, and leadership in higher education. And I'd like to warmly welcome the eminent speakers we have in here today with us, starting with Dr. P.V. Vijayaraghavan. He is the Vice-Chancellor of Sri Ramchandra University. Under his leadership, Sri Ramchandra Medical College has introduced an innovative integrated curriculum for the MBBS program. He is the driving force for bringing in modern IT solutions to enhance education in the university. He also has expertise in setting up educational units for organizations. Dr. Vijayaraghavan is a resource person both at the university's Nodal Center and also of the programs conducted by colleges under the purview of the Regional Center recognized by Medical Council of India. Dr. P.V. Vijayaraghavan is the convener Nodal Center for Medical Education Technologies recognized by Medical Council of India for conducting basic and advanced faculty development programs. He is the author of numerous publications and scientific presentations both at the national and international level. Welcome you, Vijayaraghavan, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Then we have Dr. Jawahar Surishetty, advisor to government. He's a TEDx speaker, smart city consultant, startup mentor, psychologist, best-selling author, speaking tree columnist. He has delivered numerous seminars across the globe on various issues related to the field of education and the corporate world. His best-selling international parenting guide, Mama and Me, has sold over 1.6 million copies in the US and Europe. Dr. Suresh Shetty is the recipient of several awards, including Man of the Year 2009-2010, the Bharat Shiksha Ratna Saman, and the BBC Knowledge Outstanding Contribution of the Year Award, and the NYT Da Vinci Innovator of the Year Award. Thank you so much, Jawahar sir, for joining us on this wonderful forum today. And we are awaiting Dr. Pillai to join us on this wonderful forum. Probably he'll join us very shortly. Moving on, the moderator of this August panel, Professor RSS Mani. He is the Vice President, Institutional Development, ITM Group of Institution. He's an HRD specialist and a veteran in the field of education with more than 2 decades of rich experience. He is a mentor in the areas of education management, organizational behavior, and career guidance. Professor Mani also served as the faculty member of Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Professor Mani is a gold medalist from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, from where he gained an MBA in HRD, training and development. In 1994, he founded RSS Mani and Associates, a career development consultancy. We welcome you, Mani sir. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for accepting an invitation. Leaving the screen to you, Mani sir. You may take up the discussion forward now.
Well, namaskar, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to this learning session, which is part of this Global Leadership in Education Conclave. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Jawahar once again. I think coincidentally, we were together in a previous panel with ASMA a couple of months back, and it's a pleasure to welcome you back. I'm delighted to welcome you, Dr. Vijayaraghavan. One has heard so much about the wonderful things that you've done, and it is indeed an honor to host you here this afternoon. As I often keep telling both Rahul Binoy and Rahul Jain, with such panelists, you don't need a moderator. You actually need someone who could facilitate the discussion. And I would be happy to do that. That will give me an opportunity to learn so much from the wisdom of these stalwarts who are present here. What we could do, perhaps, as I had suggested in our communication to our distinguished colleagues, I'd request both Dr. Vijayaraghavan and Dr. Sirusetti to say a few words that come top of their mind when we talk about the theme of this session. And then we can continue to take a few questions which are already there with us and integrate them with questions that would come from the audience. So if this is fine with all of us, I'd like to first look at a situation where when we talk about innovation, technology, and leadership, though the theme is intersection, I would like to use the word confluence. I feel it is very, very essential in today's age and time that these three need to coincide, collaborate, and have a confluence. So may I request Dr. Vijayaraghavan to share some of his perspectives on how, over a period of time in education, these three have indeed blended, these three indeed have synergized, and more so in the last 15 months of the pandemic, where I guess everyone reconfirms that technology and innovation has happened at an exponential pace. Over to you, Dr. Vijayaraghavan.
Thank you, Professor Mani, for that introductory remarks and for actually having me on this panel to discuss this very important subject. And I'm very happy that you used the word confluence, because ultimately all the three have to go hand in glove in order to see that higher education really progresses. And most of us, as you rightly said, the pandemic has given a sort of a practical exposure to use many of these things. So if it is okay with you, sir, just for about 7 or 8 minutes, I have a small presentation. I'll go through that and then I can have questions on that after, whenever you permit.
Certainly.
I think, can you share my presentation?
Rahul, will you take care of the backend technology support?
Yes, so you can share the screen. I think you have that access.
Okay. Sure. This is
Yes, it has started sharing. You can open your presentation.
Yeah. Has it opened, sir?
Yes, it has. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. So the topic actually that we are going to discuss is actually to understand the intersection of innovation and technology and leadership in health professional education. I thought I'll restrain myself to medical education and health professional education. Thanks for the opportunity. Today's student of the 21st century, actually, he needs to sort of interact with all these, the educational bodies have their own regulatory regulations for them to follow. They also are in a point of getting customized course content. So the standard synchronous learning is moving more and more away, and we are having more and more of asynchronous methods. They also have to sort of deal with the social circle, friends and family, and also be able to serve the industry at the end of the day. So when I looked at the sort of definition towards disruptive innovation, the topic is innovation, but ultimately any innovation that is brought in newly is disruptive for both the faculty as well as for the student. It refers to a new development that dramatically changes the way structure or industry functions. The traditional sector usually is complicated. It can be expensive. There are few users who can do it. But when you get into the world of computers, then you find that a new sector develops, which is simpler, cheaper, and easily accessible, provided the bandwidth and the connectivity is good. Some of the examples today, I think these are all become actually practically available. You have branchless banks. I think nobody ever goes to a real building of a bank now. A retail business without showrooms, cloud kitchens, telehealth, and tele-education. These are two important aspects that are going to influence health professional education in a big way. And it's not too far, although health professional education does not actually align itself very much towards theoretical learning, and a lot of practical exposure needs to be given, for which they need to visit some institution. But there are methods which I will show you in 1 or 2 slides, what is existing in the Western world, which needs to come. So it should be simple, it should be accessible, it should be affordable, and it should be convenient. So the areas in health professional education which have really influenced over the last probably 4 or 5 years is the introduction of what is called the competency-based curriculum by the Medical Council of India, now presently called at the National Medical Commission. There is a lot of possibility under that scheme to use online and digital learning. Of course, simulation training is the buzzword now, because like in the field of pilots and in aeronautics, without actually doing something on a simulator or a standardized patient, it is not safe to put a doctor or a nurse to directly deal with patients. And artificial intelligence has come in a big way also to do some sort of innovative methods. Medical Council of India, in its wisdom, worked for nearly 10 years in putting forward the competency-based undergraduate curriculum, which actually appeared in the media. Since 2019, this is being practiced. And this has introduced quite a lot of elements of early clinical exposure for the students as early as the first year, foundation course, also, skills learning. A lot of stress has been given to create skills labs in every medical college for students to undergo training. And then the development of human being as a whole in the form of the ATCOM module, which covers the attitude, ethics, and communication skill of an individual. Ultimately, any competency-based curriculum should not stop with just developing the competencies. It should be possible to define some of the interestable professional activities for individuals to do, be it a nurse, be it an allied health professional, or be it a doctor. And these has not yet been done. The work is still incomplete, and people are working on the CPS for basic competencies, and this needs to be developed for both the undergraduate and postgraduate level. Some of the digital training methods that are already in vogue and which needs to be practiced is e-learning. The basic principles are known to a lot of people, but a lot of fine-tuning needs to be done here. And this is providing quite a lot of asynchronous learning principles that are possible for students to adapt. Blended learning is the method to go for most medical colleges and other nursing, dental colleges, etc., because you can bring in the students for some amount of contact sessions apart from doing quite a lot of online session as well. Principles of e-portfolio is very important because this documentation of the activities of every student will help him not only for his own reflection, but also for evaluation. I also started and told you about simulation training. It is not necessary to always invest in huge gadgetry in the form of mannequins, computerized mannequins, etc. Even standardized patients can be developed out of health professionals who work in institutions to provide this. Task trainers and high fidelity simulation centers. In the past, social media was always thought of for entertainment purposes. But today, social media has come in a big way to influence education, and a lot of activities happen through many of these methods. Now, this is the learning management system that Sri Ramachandra has been able to create. And through this, a lot of our medical education happens for not only the medical students, but a lot of paramedical and allied health professions as well. Advantages of the learning management system, of course, is provides chance for blended learning. Some sort of an engagement of the student is always involved, and individually you can see that engagement happening for every student. There is also possibility of social learning for them amongst themselves, and also some flexibility in learning. I will skip this slide. Simulation training will be able to do quite a lot of wonders in terms of competency development, provide patient safety and cost-effective training. Now, if you look at the influence of artificial intelligence in health professional education, this actually facilitates learning in terms of developing curricular framework, learning environments, and also adaptive techniques for e-learning and performance assessment. It also provides quite a lot of data, which takes a huge time for you to manually analyze and give any verdict. Coding is also possible, and clinical applications also come into play. Now, virtual learning is the way to go. Augmented learning and virtual learning are the two methodologies that are being used under simulation for health professions education. And I'll just go through now. In future, the lecture halls are likely to look like this, like as it is happening here itself. Instead of the teacher standing on the podium and giving, he still stands on the podium but looks at the screen at the back, which projects all the students who are actually attending the session. It is now possible in the healthcare sector to provide online grand rounds, and this can be recorded and students can watch it from anywhere in the world. And there is also this virtual reality skills of actually doing a lot of skills on a sort of virtual reality. And I don't want to take too much of time. This will take about 1.5 minutes to go through that video presentation, but these are all now available and one can use this for student education. Ultimately, using of AI will have to be able to help the medical education in terms of diagnostics, therapeutics, predictive medicine, and also influencing the learning systems. So this is something which it's a last slide. I don't want to spend too much of time, but I'll be happy to discuss it during the discussion time. Ultimately, an institution should make its decision in terms of how much technology it is going to adapt and then practically involve. It is definitely going to have improved student outcomes because students of today are more digitally and computer oriented than the teachers. It also allows for improved decision making. Of course, the technology has to be supported by the appropriate networking and bandwidth. And ultimately, the institution is able to adapt to many of these methods. So I'll just like to conclude by saying that the CBME curriculum for the MBBS introduced by the Medical Council of India has allowed several innovations to be actually practically introduced into medical education. Of course, AI has made a positive impact on medical education, and simulation-based medical education is growing at a rapid pace, and embracing newer educational technologies should be consistent, should be persistent, and a lot of faculty training and development is the essential step. And ultimately, with good collaborative research in all educational areas, we'll be able to yield results. I'll stop here, and I'm sure there'll be questions that people be.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Raghavan. That was indeed very comprehensive. And thank you for setting the tone as to how this confluence of technology and innovation could help institutions assume the leadership role in this dynamic changing environment. Dr. Jawahar, you are connected with several institutions, I am aware, as advisor, as consultant, and you bring in the depth and breadth of experience across different educational segments. Would you please share some of your experiences based on the theme of how we could have the confluence between innovation, technology, and leadership? Over to you, Dr. Jawahar.
Okay, so I'll keep it more informal and short. The three basic elements, leadership, innovation, and technology, if I make a permutation combination out of this, then it will become innovation, leadership, technology, innovation, and technology leadership. Now, all these three things are very important for higher educational institutions in future. Let's take some examples. Let's say data science, if you are using for better services for teachers as well as students, like Professor said, in the case of students, we have a single curriculum which we deliver to the students. Most of the time it is one way. But if we are able to personalize or customize based on the data points available with us, it becomes better because some students are weak in something, some students are weak in something else. So the use of data to customize or personalize whatever learning is happening is a better way to do it, including assessments. Similarly, when we talk of teachers also, if suppose the teacher has some good data points on one topic and does not have on the other, then training in the other topic in which he or she needs some help is something that is under the purview of data. So use of data will be the key to higher educational institutions to innovate as well as to lead the institutions. This is the first thing. The second is technology innovation. When we've said there are, although as rightly said, engineering colleges have had Atal Innovation Mission leading the innovation there. But I also believe that arts and humanities is what they are looking at the next level, that innovation should happen in the arts and humanities segments also, not just the technology segments. So to do that, again, a mindset of having a thought process in which ultimately what is higher education, and it prepares you for entrepreneurship or employability. The societal needs need to be analyzed, maybe futuristic societal needs to be analyzed, and then incorporated into the curriculum so that so if technology is something that the society looking into, especially during COVID times, we have seen EdTech and Health Tech doing extremely good. And this is the, let's say, the COVID app or Arogya Setu app have been front runners in the data on who in the nearby area is affected or something like that. Is a very good example of how we've used technology. So if the society says that technology and innovation are the future needs, then the higher educational institutions also need to bring them into our systems so that we can cater to the societal needs as well as increase the employability and entrepreneurship skills of the students. Now, in the case of higher educational institutions, one important aspect which innovation and technology will bring in, apart from the leadership will need to lead the change. So there is a huge amount of resistance of change in the higher educational institutions, which does not enable innovation to come. Technology is still acceptable to the people there, but the innovation or the thoughts that bring in innovation among the students is not something that is a part of our curriculum, and we do not promote that too. So the art of thinking, which I propose as a curriculum for the students, is something which will make them fantastic in terms of employment. So change has to be acceptable, and this ecosystem has to be developed by the leadership. It's a very key role of the leader to be able to visualize tomorrow's innovations and drive technology and students towards this so as to contribute to the society, to the employability, to entrepreneurship. All the leaders will need to do this. And to do this, one thing is that we ape the West and take in leadership aspects, innovations, and technology that is happening there. But a very key part of India is, or the Indian ecosystem is, that we need to localize all these three parts, the leadership, innovation, and thing to the local milieu. It might be global. I am not saying no. Even a McDonald's has to change its burger to paneer tikka burger to come to India, or even Kellogg's has to bring in upma flavored cornflakes to come to India. So I think you'll need to do that even in higher education institutions. And a short description on what world over we are doing in terms of all the three is that we have had experiential marketing in the enrollment strategies, which is very important, and we've taken it from hotels. So I can't go to a hotel which is maybe to 20,000 miles. Maybe I need to travel somewhere else to the other end of the world. But hotel booking happens in such a way that I am able to see the whole room, experience the whole room before I book it. And that room is allocated to me. Similarly, higher educational institutions are showing experiential marketing in which they are showing the 360-degree views of the campuses, and I'm experiencing the classrooms in which the student is likely to be enrolled. The second is the speed of admission process, which used to be earlier a month, has now increased, and 24 to 48 hours is the time when a decision is given based on the data science. The social media accounts of the student are seen, the LinkedIn account especially, and then they are given admission within 24. You don't have to wait long. So even students have become impatient these days. So we understand as a higher education institution. The third is online education, not just 2D, because with 3D machines, we have 3D printers, we have a feeling of 3D, we can show models easily. And fourth is condensed and less expensive modular, because students are becoming impatient. So they want credits fast, they want to learn things they want to learn, and not the thing that you want to teach. So that is something which is happening across the world. And the last is
Dr. Vijay Raghavan, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
We lost Dr. Jawahar.
To hear me now.
Dr. Jawahar, you can try to put off your video and continue to speak for 2-3 minutes.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, and the last point I want to make is lifelong degrees. So student is enrolling in a university or a higher educational institution, and he is there for long, so as long as he wants to learn, and he is upgraded from time to time, and lifelong enrichment happens, and not just for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. That's the point I wanted to make. That's it. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Jawahar, you presented a very fresh perspective where we are looking at not only innovation in a noun form, but the fact that everyone has to innovate. That means you have to actually get on to doing it. It's not enough to talk about change, but it's important to implement the change. And suggestions that you made in terms of making the learning systems a little more flexible, a little more student friendly, I guess make it very, very easy for the student to continue on this journey of learning. Wonderful perspectives coming from two stalwarts in the field of higher education. I'd like to ask Dr. Vijay Raghavan, what has been his experience, particularly in areas of compliance and regulatory matters when it comes to changing into a virtual delivery mode, a virtual examination mode. We are so used to a traditional form of exams, admissions, and so on. And particularly in higher education, in the medical space, paramedical space, engineering space, this poses greater challenge. Can we have some of your insights, sir?
Thank you for that very thoughtful question. Actually, this is going to be the bugbear, but luckily the COVID-19 has sort of made many of these regulatory bodies also look into some of these aspects. I think if the pandemic had not happened, 100%, I was more or less sure that the virtual examination that is happening, that is video-based examination, where the examiner is still in his own place. He is connected by technology with the student's performance. And then most of the assessments happened last year by that mechanism. Even accreditations, that is even visits to institution from councils happened on a virtual mode. So on an online mode. So these are innovations which we have actually experienced. They have always given circulars to the effect that this is allowed for this year. That is the type of approvals that we have got. But I think the present education policy, which opens up quite a lot of these issues and also allowing more and more of online education and online systems to be followed, it is a matter of time that the regulatory bodies will have to follow suit to give us some more flexibility in doing things as we want. So it's an excellent question, but many of these things, my advocacy would be that we should be using these systems for formative assessment to begin with. So once we are able to do it at the formative stage, and we are, because it's not that the regulatory body doesn't want to allow just for the heck of it. Their reason for not allowing is that a lot of malpractice can happen, and that's how they are worried about the ultimate standard of the student who is coming out. So keeping those concerns in mind, I am sort of at the mid path where I see that once we experience it on a formative basis at the formative stage and we get good results, it can be a lot of innovations, like, you can allow assignments to be done by the student under a proctored mode, and this can be watched, and you can easily see that everything is perfectly all right. So to your question, I think right now the regulatory bodies are not that favorable. The pandemic helped them to sort of give some temporary permissions, and the permanency will come once the technology also builds up better, and ultimately there should be no complaints from the end user, namely the student.
Absolutely. I think very valid point. Maybe the future is going to see a lot of blended learning, where what can be delivered, assessed digitally might continue, and what really requires that classroom-based learning, the laboratory-based practical training, be it even a course on related to humanities. Sometimes the interactions in the classroom, the learning from peers could be phenomenal. So we hope that such good things happen in time to come. Dr. Jawahar, I am tempted to ask you that a lot of this innovation, leadership, technology, and all the synergy that it brings to education, considering India's huge digital divide, how easy or difficult is it going to be to roll out some of this? And what have been some of your experiences and advice to the government in making this more robust? Dr. Jawahar.
So the statistic that institutions lack technology support, and approximately 67% is what have the technology. Huge mass, which is close to 1/3, which does not have, and we will look at that also. So what we have tried to do is that local level moving to hold.
Dr. Jawahar, I'm sorry, but we've lost him completely. Dr. Jawahar, you can keep your video off for some time. We'd like to listen to you though.
Okay.
Because there is some audio
So,
video clash. Please go ahead.
We have used cinema halls in Mufasil areas where there are single screen theaters and which are closed due to the COVID to beam classes for college students. So that is something that we've used. That is one. The second is where we do not have internet connectivity in rural areas. We've sent SMS messages with the text. So we've tried to localize the innovation is happening. The third is L&T has come up with some boxes, which
I'm afraid we've lost him again. Yes, Dr. Jawahar, you were talking to us about L&T.
L&T, the box that they created, you could load whatever content you want. You can beam it without the internet in the classrooms in colleges. So that is something that L&T has done and given it as a CSR to the rural areas. So that is about the divide. And third, important aspect that we've done is we tried and used in those areas where Facebook is available, internet is available, but technology is not available. We've tried to use Facebook and we've done some very interesting experiments like EduCachery, where we have mixed up music and education and tried to play for 3 hours with the young boys and girls because Bollywood and music they like. So when you have a 2D visual, it is very difficult to keep them interested. That's why we thought we will mix up music and education, and we've tried to do. We've done it with 15,000 students for a period of 3 months, and it has been a fantastic experience, which has been applauded by the UN SDGs also.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to note that a lot of such initiatives are enabling us to reach the students in rural areas where, though connectivity is still pretty good, at times is not sufficient bandwidth to have a complete class for a couple of hours and so. So that's wonderful to hear from you on these initiatives, Dr. Jawahar. Dr. Vijay Raghavan, I had one more question pertaining to one of the points you made before, that we noticed the increasing emphasis of telemedicine, telehealth, and all these services are available now, courtesy the efficient internet services. Part of it was necessitated due to the pandemic where one needed to consult a doctor, but now people have started using it more as a mode of convenience. I'm just curious to know, where does one draw the line? How does one really ensure that one doesn't go overboard on this? Because ultimately, I think the good old memories we have of visiting the doctor, him diagnosing us or her diagnosing us, and ensuring that we quickly got the medicine that we needed to get back to normal. I think that's an experience which is irreplaceable. What would be your views on how do we really draw the line?
Yeah, I think you again hit the nail on its head by asking that question, because medicine is all about compassion, empathy, and some sort of a human element that is involved. And in the online mode or the telemedicine type of mode, that personal touch to certain extent is, of course, the technology has improved so much that actually you can have a video demonstration of the patient walking or the patient talking or patient, and a lot of diagnosis can be made on such type of observations. However, I think now there are lots of, previously medico-legally, it was not permitted even to send in prescriptions through the tele mode or through the mail mode, and it was not valid. And the pharmacists will not respect the prescription if it is given in that form. But today, again, the COVID has driven us to accept a lot of these things, and things are improving also to a great extent. If you ask me, the drawing the line, wherever there is a physical examination required, where the patient needs to be actually seen by the doctor and some sort of a small gadgetry needs to be applied on him to make a diagnosis, there is no point really in making him to go through the telemedicine method. He may have an initial consultation, but it is always preferable to tell him that I would be happy to see you in person. A lot of psychiatric consultation, to my mind, can very well happen on the tele mode. Absolutely, there is no, because for them, it is communication, talking to the patient and then getting to a diagnosis. But many specialties which requires quite a lot of clinical skills to make that, I think they should make the patient to come back. In the area of education, actually, I must tell you at this point, our institution actually was one of the selected ones for the former President Abdul Kalam's initiative of actually providing basic medical education to a lot of Pan-African countries, nearly 52 countries. People were able to listen to our faculty members in the basic imparting of medical education. So the scope in the area of education is quite high. In the area of healthcare, it is definitely there. But as you rightly said, we must know when to stop and when to actually get into the other mode. The problem during COVID was that obviously the hospitals were all closed. Most of the hospitals were closed for non-COVID treatment. And so this was very, very useful. When things improve, I think things will be all right. WhatsApp was used so much by people towards consultation. So teleconsultation has its own limitations, and you must be bold enough to tell that this far and beyond this, we'll have to see the patient.
Appreciate that perspective. And I think both of you have very ably indicated that social media, which was often seen as a platform for just connecting or for entertainment, has been so effectively used for education, for reaching across to people in remotest parts. And this perhaps has set the ball rolling in terms of alternative ways to deliver the learning process, as one might say. This is where perhaps we are seeing the blending of innovation with technology in the strict sense of the word. Both of you being such senior veterans, I'd like to ask you to share your perspectives on why is it that very often in institutions, leadership development is a gray area today. Very often in institutions, we still notice that there is a lack of succession planning, be it educational institutions, be it associations, be it even the corporate world. The succession planning as a process of leadership development is still not given due importance. Would you like to share some of your perspectives, Dr. Jawahar? Dr. Jawahar, we still have a network issue with you, but we'd like to listen to you at least for sure. So maybe you can speak with your video off.
So the first thing is that if I divide the whole scenario into two, one is the public institutions and the private institutions. There is a sense of seniority, etc., which is a part of the public higher educational institution. So leadership qualities are not per se the things that are looked at with a very great deal of importance in those cases. But if I come to the private space, yes, leadership is a big yes for the private institutions. But yes, I again agree that the norms or the qualities that you look for is one, loyalty, the second is allegiance to the management, the third is in line, whether you are in line or sync with the business policies of the institution, etc., etc. So leadership takes a back seat when it comes to loyalty. So merit again takes a back seat, and that is why there is no succession plan in institutions, which we, but this I think of late has been coming into vogue, where leadership has shown that it can run as higher educational institutions as if it's a corporate entity, not in the terms of bringing business or profit or something like that, but bringing discipline and ecosystem which is conducive for the students and the teaching and the learning process, etc., etc.
Wonderful. I think that's a very valid point you made. As we say, let's pick up the good practices from the corporate world and see how they can be integrated into the academic world, because ultimately both of us are serving the customer, which is the society, in one form or the other. Dr. Vijay Raghavan, your experiences, please, in this area.
Yeah, the leadership plays a very, very major role in terms of any type of innovation that you want to introduce in any organization. If you don't have the leadership support, I don't think things ever move. He has to be convinced, the leader has to be. But to your specific question on succession plan, at least at Sri Ramachandra, we have sort of in the last 4 or 5 years started a practice of not only appointing a dean, but also appointing an associate dean or a vice dean. So everywhere there is a second line sort of appointed and the order itself is given so that they participate. And then when they participate, they're able to understand the nonsenses of, see, one of the biggest problem for leadership, and that I want to specifically mention, and when I quote about the leadership, I bring in the private managements also. Private managements are quite willing to spend a lot of money as long as it is utilized properly. Now, just to take because I covered so much on simulation, today you can almost invest in an organization to the tune of 15-20 crores to develop an appropriate simulation lab. But the management's query is, at best, particularly in health professional education, this is not the ultimate. The student is not going to always depend on only simulation to get his ultimate experience. And these are children who will not continually use this forever. So probably they will be all right in the initial semesters of their 4th or 3rd semesters. But after that, so when they come and see the utility of this type of, so I think the industry also should come out with certain models which are cost effective, which are cheaper. And that's why I even advise, I'm a part of the expert group with the MCI. I tell them, don't insist that every college should have the high-end skills lab. The high-end skills lab can be probably one in each state. And that all the other colleges can actually come and use. And of course, private managements will be quite keen to charge them. And it's fine because everything nothing comes cheap, and you should be able to do that. So one is the technology or the innovation, but the usefulness of the technology persistently throughout is something which we have to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I think the fact that you brought out, can we not pool in resources? Can we ensure that the existing resources are used to the maximum optimum manner is something which you brought out very beautifully, and I appreciate that point too. I see one question from the audience, which I think has already been answered. I want to use this as an opportunity to repeat what we learned from our stalwarts, and that is, when we are talking about leadership at any given point in time, I would believe successful leadership happens when the leader can produce more leaders. It's not that having followers is the sign of leadership. It's not that a successful leader is one who has plenty of followers. I think the ability, the intent, and how one can produce more leaders is the real true test of leadership. And I think it was delightful listening to both Dr. Vijay Raghavan and Dr. Jawahar on how very, very subtly and in their own efficient manner have made such an impact in the space of higher education. It's been a wonderful learning session over the last 1 hour. And I want to thank both of you gentlemen for having shared so much of your wisdom so readily and in such a elaborate and concise manner. Thank you, ASMA, for continuing to lead such initiatives to enrich the entire fraternity of learners and contribute to the space of higher education. Back to you, Rahul, for your concluding remarks. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay Raghavan and Dr. Jawahar.
Thank you so much, Manisa. And that was such a remarkable and insightful discussion, actually. And thank you to all the eminent speakers, Jawahar sir, Vijay Raghavan sir, and Manisa. As always, you did a marvelous job moderating the whole session. It was such a joy and a pleasure hosting you all. And I really hope you two all had a wonderful time as well. Thank you so much once again. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to the last panel discussion of the day, the topic of discussion is Academia to Administration, implementing a holistic approach to the tech transformation in higher education. I'd like to warmly welcome the eminent speakers we have in here today with us, starting from Mr. Sudhanshu Verma. He's the CEO of Bennett University. He's an experienced and successful leader known for his dynamic leadership style and brilliant people management skills, with more than 31 years of experience across various industries and sectors, having led several divisions and businesses with more than 31 years of experience. And blue chip companies like Hindustani Unilever, BPL Limited, Religare Technova, and Manipal Global Education. He has played multidisciplinary roles. Mr. Verma holds a bachelor's degree from BITS Pilani with BE in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in MSc in physics. He has been pivotal in managing large teams and bringing about innovative and robust growth and scalability across companies that he has worked with. He has also been advisor to numerous companies in sectors of funding, IT, and education. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Then we have Dr. D. Sasiprabha. She is the Vice-Chancellor of Satyabhama University. She comes with rich experience of 25 years and has completed her graduation in computer science and engineering and started her academic career as lecturer in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Satyabhama Institute of Science and Technology, in the year 1995. She has more than 100 publications to her credit that includes journal articles, book chapters, books, and conference proceedings. Dr. Sasi Prabha is the recipient of many awards, including the Best Teacher Award for Outstanding Performance and Best Faculty Award from Cognizant Technology Solutions in recognition for her excellence in teaching and research. Welcome, Sasi Prabha. I think she hasn't joined yet, but probably she'll join very shortly. Then next we have Dr. Sharad Maiskar. He's the Pro Vice Chancellor of Narasimhan Institute of Management Studies. He has an academic experience of for about 30 years and has been associated with a Middle East consulting firm for 4 years. He graduated in civil engineering from Mumbai University in 1978 and subsequently earned his master's and doctoral degrees from IIT Bombay. Dr. Maiskar has been a member of the Engineering Accreditation Evaluation Committee of the National Board of Accreditation India and has evaluated several programs across the country for accreditation. He has guided 40 students for their MTech dissertation and 3 PhD research scholars in different areas of civil and materials engineering. He has been a member of the BIS committee for drafting codes and standards, and he has, to his credit, several research papers in international and national journals. Welcome you, Sharad sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Binay. Thank you. Thank you.
And then next we have Dr. Sasmita Samantha. Probably ma'am will join us very shortly. Moving on to the moderator of the session of this very august panel. He has more than 39 years of experience in the field of education. He has been an entrepreneur for 3 years and worked in the industry for over 16 years as senior manager personnel. He acquired his PhD from the Department of Business Management, HNB Garhwal University, Srinagar, Garhwal, and completed his MBA from Motilal Nehru Institute of Research and Business Administration, the University of Allahabad. He has a keen interest in the field of marketing management, strategy being his forte, and he has more than 20 years of experience in teaching and research. He is the author of several research papers and has also been the keynote speaker, chief guest at a number of conferences and seminars. He is a member of numerous bodies related to higher education and is on the boards of management and advisory boards of many institutions and universities. Please welcome Professor Abhay Kumar. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Thank you so much once again, and I'm really glad to all of you, like, for accepting our invitation and to be here with us on this wonderful forum. Over to you, Abhay, sir. You may take up the discussion forward now.
My sincere thanks to ASMA and Mr. Rahul Binoy, especially for having organized such a wonderful, such wonderful sessions. And of course, it has been a great learning to me since I have joined in the earlier session as well. We have with us some very distinguished panelists, and it would not be an easy task to moderate with them. Anyhow, the theme for today's session, this particular session, is Academia to Administration, implementing a holistic approach to the tech transformation in higher education. Well, we all know that learners are evolving and seeking a change from traditional teaching methods. It is high time for educators to become more student-centric and start, revisiting their leadership approaches and mindsets as well. This would be for the better education delivery and for ensuring a holistic approach towards the technical transformation. Say, in student-centered learning, there is a very urgent need to replace the traditional education model, which is characterized by slow-based learning and rote learning and examination-based methods. We know that the new national education policy has also talked about these issues. So of course, the flow of the program, as I would like to submit before the distinguished panel, is that in the initial 4 to 5 minutes given to each honored panelist, we would just have an introductory, submission from them, followed by some of the queries which I have in mind, and I would be addressing them to each of the panelists. Of course, ending up with closing remarks from each. This is how the flow of the session would be. So initially, to start with, I would request Mr. Sudhanshu Verma, the CEO of Bennett University. Sir, please give us some thoughts on what you think about this particular theme.
Thank you, Dr. Abhay. Nice to see you after a long time.
Yes, sir. It is, of course, my pleasure.
4 years back.
Yeah.
But not fair. I am actually not the right guy to be in this panel. You should have started with Dr. Sharad instead of me. He's far
actually,
more.
this is just as to how the sequence has been given to me. It doesn't. It is not.
I shall take it up with Rahul later.
Please, sir.
So my view is that, so when we talk about tech transformation, it is but obvious that in any higher education institute, it is not just the faculty or just the academia which is there as part of the institute. There is a lot of other support functions which work along with the academicians, and that is where the whole institute gets formed or an organization gets created. So if the tech transformation has to happen, I think the topic is very, very apt, that it has to be a holistic approach and it just cannot be limited to bits and pieces as part of an institution. Well, as they say, you know, a car will only run if all the 4 wheels are moving at the same pace at the same time. You cannot have 3 wheels which are moving and 1 wheel which is on a brake. The other 3 will not move. So I think when we look at it that way, while in a way, thanks to COVID, this whole movement from a physical face-to-face teaching learning experience, there is a lot of technology play which has come into existence today. But within the technology play, there is a lot more where the technology needs to really contribute, because Online teaching or online learning is not only about putting up PPTs and putting up PDF documents and reading out from them. I think it's a much more interactive platform which needs to be used. It has to be used much more innovatively. It cannot be a one-way traffic. While all of that is coming into place, we must also understand that similar challenges are also there on the non-academic side. Now, it could be sales and marketing on one side, it could be finance on the other, it could be the HR function, it could be the operations, it could be the IT operations by themselves. Because all of them also in time need to become tech savvy. Gone are the days where we will ever reach what we used to call a normal. It will be an absolutely new normal. COVID will not go away. It may reduce. We may continue to make, more and more innovations in our vaccinations. We may become more and more secure. But COVID, like any other viral or any other disease, will not go away. We can't wish it away. So I think a lot of other departments too need to be very, very clear that they too need to become tech savvy. And platforms cannot now be looked at, 10 different solutions tackling 10 different problems. The more interconnected and comprehensive way teams will now work will truly impact what is going to happen to whether it's a higher education institute or whether it's a K-12 section or whether it is any organization. All different teams have to now start working in a more conjoint, connected way. And therefore, technology also has to be used where it connects the different teams and does not create the silos or the Chinese walls between them. Those days and those I don't think that way of working will ever come back. I see it in my own place in Bennett, where when we were looking at a comprehensive LMS ERP solution in place, what a sales and marketing person does and gets a student in, and with what detail he gets him in, directly impacts the finance team, the registrar's team, and eventually the academician. So what is needed, I think, very clearly is the teams to sit together to understand who needs what kind of understanding, detailing of the processes that they have to follow, and for the other team to have respect for the processes one particular team is following. The finance person must have respect for the processes that the registrar's team follows. The registrar must have respect for what the sales and marketing team does. Only then you will be able to intelligently and efficiently use technology. Otherwise, we will only be continuing to work the same way as we were doing earlier. And we'll try and make and break systems to work the way we have been working, rather than using the power of technology to actually make it happen in a much better situation for us. I see Dr. Sharad just smiling. Hopefully, he'll agree with me on some of the points. But
fully agree. Yeah.
No, I keep on telling teams. So why I said I'm not the right person to be in this thing is because I'm just about 11 years old in education. I have been through 7 or 8 different sectors. And to me, always what has worked is that you can either take technology and a solution developed and kill it to death by customizing it to the way you work. Or you can relook at the way you work and use the power of the solution that is there. And I think in today's world is the right time for us to look at it ground up. Forget the way we've been working over years, the way we've been doing things over years. In fact, just 5 minutes before this session, I was with our Dean Academics. And I was telling him, I said, there is so much of a difference when you do the registration for a session, semester, physically, versus when you do a registration online. Physically, the child will come and he will have those 20 different papers with him. And he will come and ask you a question, and you actually point out the forms which he has to fill, where he has to sign, what he has to fill. In online, you can't do that. In online, today, a student is taking the easiest way out, like some of us do. He just knows that if I pick up the phone and call the helpline number, they will online teach me how to fill it, rather than why should I apply my brain, read all the detailed circulars they've sent, read the attachments they've sent, and then use my brain to fill the form. They don't want to do that. I mean, honestly, if we all go back and see, number of insurances we've got ourselves done, or if we've signed up for some services, typically what you do is you go to the bank and the person who's selling you insurance, you tell him, "Acha, boss, tell me where do I have to sign? You please fill up the details." This is exactly what the students are doing. So there is a huge difference in the way technology world is operating versus when it was a not so deep technology world in the physical sense. So there is no choice but to have a holistic approach, which will bring all the teams in the university or the college together, other than everyone continuing to work in their own silos. That is my.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhanshu. In fact, you have very aptly pointed out, sir, that nothing can happen in silos. So it has to be a conjoint effort if tech transformation is to take place. And of course, all the various departments, all the various say sections of the organization, whether it is higher education, K-12, as you rightly pointed out, or even the industry, everyone has to come together. Of course, sir, I always agree to the fact that in this era, post-COVID-19, or maybe in the midst of even the pandemic right now, we cannot remain as isolated islands of excellence. Collaboration is a must now, whether it is between the departments, whether it is between institutions, and if tech transformation is to take place, the mindset has also to change. So, sir, thank you so much. Now, as per your directions, I'm moving over to Dr. Sharad Maiskar, Pro Vice-Chancellor, Nursing Home Institute of Management Studies. Dr. Sharad, let us have your views for another 4 to 5 minutes on this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Verma, for giving an oversight on what we are into right now. And thank you, Dr. Abhay Kumar, for summarizing the discussions and leading the direction for the entire discussion. We have been thinking of this area since the last 10 years, but it really gathered momentum in the last 4 or 5 years and more momentum in the last 2 years. So COVID has been in other sense, a blessing in disguise because it forced us to think in a different way. That's one important thing I want to mention. And I must thank ASMA for this initiative because this is a very apt topic at this point of time when we are seeing almost the end of the pandemic. And that is why we need to think what we did in the pandemic and where we were before and where we're going to move further now. So this is indeed a good initiative. And I must say that the panelists and the participants will benefit immensely from this discussion. Now, the topic for this discussion, of course, is tech transformation. But I must say that I'm going to restrict myself only to the digital transformation part of it, which is there in the administrative aspects and the academic aspects. But I'm not going to our laboratory aspects, which are also overwhelmed by the digital transformation. There are a lot of things to talk about in the laboratory, data and the conduction of experiments and so on. So let me not talk about that, but let me talk about tech transformation as I see through it, digital transformation, eyes of digital transformation. We hear a lot of things about digital transformation nowadays, and people use it in different terms and different senses. But I see commonly people using it only like bringing in, say, cloud and data and AI only in those terms, forgetting the real meaning of digital transformation. And what digital transformation really means is that it's using digital technologies to create new or modifying existing business processes, culture, and customer experiences to meet business and market requirements. So there are tools available to us, but what are we doing with it to change the business processes, strengthen the processes, modify processes, what is important. And this reimagining and reinventing the processes that we have of business of education, I should say, in the digital age is what we understand is digital transformation. And it has encompassed now all sections of the work that we do, as Mr. Verma was saying. It has encompassed everything that we can do in a higher education sector. The flow of data and accurate information that many agencies require, many stakeholders require from different points of time at different frames of time and forecasting needs and performances. All this can be done very easily with digital transformation. If you look at the management efficiency nowadays, you have almost real-time information available to them. Leaderships also roles, if you look at, you have real-time information almost available at the fingertips. And so do the faculty and students get information about the real-time delivery, understanding, and so on. Even if you look at teaching and learning, assessment, evaluation, and feedback, all of it is happening in almost a real-time way, because you now come to know if the student is learning online or no, although there's a difference in the way we look at the online learning, understanding, and so on. But the most important things that I look at is, the student experience. That is very important as far as digital transformation is concerned, because the students, right from the time they think of taking admission, coming to a university, they get a different student experience through the CRM tools that are available now. And that really attracts the student to the portal or the website or whatever means we have. And then really you capture the student from there on, from the journey, from the admission to the entry, then access to the journey to the 4 years or 5 years of education that you have, and then after that. So that's a very important thing, that entire journey of a student before and after, and during the part of the education is also captured. The other important thing for education institutes like us is nowadays the impact of social media. So the reputation management which is there, which is a very important thing when a student goes to any information gathering, is reputation management. So ORM, online reputation management, is one very important tool which is there in the hands of now leaders, and to see what is the impression of your institute in the external world. And there are many more things that tech can do. But more importantly, we can get a lot of business information, business intelligence from these tools that are there, and a lot of analytics tools sitting on this to assess the present state and use predicting modeling techniques to anticipate the future and be ready for it. Last and not the least is the impact that social media is going to have on lives and businesses as we move along this entire decade or so, which is going to be there. But I must say that, what Mr. Verma was mentioning is very important. We are really invaded by it. We have no choice, as he said. But, we don't have a single solution which will take you from end to end, although there are many ERPs available. Like, for example, at NMIMS, we have SAP as a backbone. But we have so many other things to carry out different functions. For example, we have the Oracle HCM. We have the TCS ION, for digital question paper generation and so on. But the important thing is, these softwares, if you want them to talk to each other, we have to have some APIs. And API is a big, big mess, where we are finding that getting meaningful data from these APIs and carry these functions day in and out for a period of 5-10 years is going to be a big challenge. So this is one challenge that we're facing. We're invaded by it. Yes, we have to have it, but we are not at the moment having a solid one-stop solution which will help us in understanding the entire thing and get meaningful data for different stakeholders. That's a big challenge we are facing. And I think we need to look at all these things gradually as we go along. Tech transformation, digital transformation is not a tool which is going to be cheap. It's going to be very expensive. We are paying a lot of money to this, and many of our leaders are feeling that the money that we are spending now, it's not giving good returns unless we harness this in an appropriate way, as Mr. Verma was mentioning, a coordinated effort, each department talking to each other, getting the benefits of the other department that we have. Unless we do that, we can't really reap the benefits of this. So in short, I will say that we are into a long journey, maybe an expensive journey, but I feel that the way the country is moving and the education policy is predicting the ease of business, as I can say, in the sector of higher education, we may reap the benefits of it shortly. There are so many angles to it, but I think every stakeholder of this journey will benefit eventually. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sharad. I think you have emphasized on some very relevant points, like saying that digital transformation tools may be there, but of course, how do they benefit the business process? That is important. Then you talked about the student experiences. Of course, very, very relevant for any higher education or even K-12 institutions. Of course, the social media, you so well emphasized. There's so much information around. The students as well as the teachers have to find out which are the relevant information out of that big pool. Also, the expenses you talked about, very true. As we leaders, we are all aware how expensive it is and how the way forward should be, of course. And Mr. Sudhanshu also said, and you also emphasized very well, sir, that we have to harness the entire efforts and we have to bring the departments together so that these tools may become effective. So thank you so much. Now we move over to Dr. T. Sasi Prabha, Vice-Chancellor, Satyabhama University. Ma'am, we have been in a few webinars and conclaves together earlier also. And yes, whatever you've been talking about has been very educative to me, learning and unlearning efforts from my side. So I would request you to give some inputs on what you think about this particular topic.
Yes, sir. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to Rahul and ASMA for giving me this opportunity. And I'm also thanking the fellow Vice-Chancellors and other panelists. So the assessment of learning in higher education during this COVID-19 pandemic, and we are all moving towards the technology transformation. Actually, that was very much needed for India. So this COVID has made us, it has got a lot of health issues and we are really suffered during this pandemic period. Still, this COVID pandemic has made a huge transition of Indian institutions, especially the higher education institutions, right from school education. So a huge transition has occurred and every individual, right from a lab assistant to a school student, to a higher education student, to a professor, are now their digital skills are there. So they have improved their digital skills irrespective of the cadre. So, and they are developing a lot of digital contents. So this transition was actually required the countries like India. And now how the institutions are supporting this students and faculty, because we have to invest on digital infrastructure. So I do not know how many institutions are equipped digitally to support this digital transition, but most of the institutions have already supported. I think most of the institutions have supported, and they should have, otherwise there is no meaning of growth in any of the institutions based after this pandemic, after this post-corona. So this transition, this transformation actually is needed for the growth of every individual organization. It is actually increasing the speed of our work. The digital transformation is increasing the speed of our work and reducing the human error. But as one of the panelists already mentioned, the challenges in customizing this digital infrastructure based on the individual institution requirements is a question mark. I do not know how far these technologists or the edutech companies are convincing the institutions to impart appropriate technologies to meet out their day-to-day needs. Right from a student who has joined the institution, the day one to day out, all his data needs to be recorded, and all his data, all his transitions from one class to another class, choosing subjects, all his records needs to be tracked. So this type of provision should be there. Similarly, for faculty members, each and every individual in the institution should have an online track record of all their activities. So that should be there, and that needs a intervention of expertise at the institution, the administrator at the institution, and the technology intervention. I hope these edutech companies can sit to the institutions, and if they are developing a customized product for every institution, it will be of great help to the institutions. And most of the institutions are partially doing, and most of the institutions are not able to do, and they are with the disintegrated units they are able to run, because that will not be helpful for the future. So like developed countries, our system should also be developed robustly. That needs a good technology support, and this support will really help the institutions to grow further. And regarding this teaching learning process is concerned, we are all using digital tools, and but repeatedly the same tools are getting used by different teachers of the same institution. There are plenty of tools available, So we have to really educate our faculty members how to use those tools effectively, efficiently in their classroom sessions, so that the innovative pedagogical approaches can be imparted in the classrooms. This is my humble request. So first of all, we made a huge transition, but the transition, the awareness about the transitions needs to be imparted to all the stakeholders, right from student, faculty, and other stakeholders of the institutions needs to be get the awareness about various tools used. And we need to have a proper, robust ERP in the institution, which would keep track of all the individuals' activities right from the day one to the day out of the institution. So this technology transformation is really supporting the institutions to grow on par with the international institutions. Regarding research is concerned, research also. So because of the technological support, research, the speed of doing research is also increasing. Even right from this drug discovery activities also, through the bioinformatics work, they can able to reduce the number of days or the number of the time, the duration they're taking for doing some analysis or taking some decision, and even in discovering drug molecules. So like that, everywhere now the technology is playing a huge role. And even in the laboratories, if you see the remote laboratories, see if in our institutions we have made our own remote labs, so the student can able to use those labs at any time, anywhere. So this type of atmosphere every institution needs to do. I am not denying that we should not have these offline sessions. We should have offline sessions. That needs empathy need to be created among the peers, among the faculty and student. That needs to be there. So let us use the positivity of online or digital transformation and the positive of the offline. So let us do a blended mode and let us progress. And we want most of the institutions from India needs to be the top institutions globally. That's my interest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sasi Prabha, for the various interventions you've talked about. Well, digital transformation or tech intervention, as you said, of course, would increase the speed of all processes, systems and processes, but of course, and the margin of error would maybe reduce. But again, of course, you were talking about the teacher training for how the tools could be used properly. There may be so many tools around, which ones to use to the best possible effectiveness and efficiency. Well, even the Honorable Prime Minister had posted a LinkedIn post a year back saying that efficiency should not be measured by the number of hours put together, 9 to 5. It should be the effectiveness that should be measured in any organization. So even higher education institutions must start thinking on those lines.
Yes,
I'm very much attuned to what you have said about the collaboration. Again, all three of us, Mr. Sudhanshu, Dr. Sharad, and yourself. I'll just give you a small example of what we had done in Pratap Group, ma'am. All the institutions in Kanpur, Lucknow, Delhi, Bhopal, and Jaipur Pratap University, whether it is K-12 schools, whether it is the higher education institutions, I personally, as a leader, brought them under one banner and had a meeting with all the institutional heads. We said, we have so many resources together, yet we are not sharing it, even being a part of this group. So let's start doing it, and it has done wonders in the past few months, sir. There were so many vacant resources with each one of us. Like, for example, today I had a webinar with one of the schools, the students, the teachers. We should help each other, and that is what the digital transformation or tech intervention actually means. So thank you so much. I think Professor Dr. Sasmita Samanta is not here with us at present. He is the Pro Vice-Chancellor KIIT Bhubaneswar. Since he has not joined, I would again begin with Mr. Sudhanshu with a small query which I have in mind, sir, in the same sequence. Now, can I just ask you, what are some of the notable tech transformations in the current higher education network which you feel has taken place?
Sure. So just before that, I want to touch on a point. I think Dr. Sharad also raised it. You see, we all, in our own way, define processes, the way we do things. Now, the way we had developed processes in the pre-COVID era, they need to be looked at very differently. And in my view, and I've been I've been a very strong believer of processes right since the first few years of my working. And I was lucky to have started my first job with Hindustan Lever. And I think Dr. Sharad will agree. And when it comes to processes, there is yet anyone else to beat them in terms of the way processes are defined and done.
Right.
Now, you see, processes typically, unfortunately, typically they are looked at a way to do things slowly and steadily. They are misunderstood to be actually the choking points. Processes are meant to really enable you to replicate and do things without rediscovery every time. Now, why I'm saying this, because of what you asked. If you look at what technology developments or new things which have come up, or how this situation has impacted new ways of using technology in today's world, I think one of the things which we definitely see is like what we've all said, the way we teach, the way the student is interacting with you, the way we are using different tools which we didn't know of earlier. I think one of the key things to really derive a lot of value out of all the developments which have been done by various edtech companies is to honestly sit back and relook at our processes, relook at the way we've been doing things. If I was to continue to stick to the way I have been doing it till now, I, for one, am 100% confident I will not grow. Because what worked for me and what has brought me till here, it necessarily will not work for me in time to come. See, we are dealing today with multiple generations in a higher education institute. You are dealing with the young generation of kids who are more visual, who believe or understand or gather things or capture things faster if they are visual, rather than sitting and underlining textbooks and making notes. You are dealing with another generation, which are the younger lot of people who are, whether it's on the academia side as faculty, or whether they are in the finance team or the registrar's team or whoever. They think very differently. They have different ambitions. They want to do things at a different speed and a different way. We have a third level of generation who've been in the system for the last 10, 15 years as professionals, or 20 years as professionals in various fields. And they've been used to, a certain way of working over the last 15, 20 years. They are partly between who can change and partly between who don't want to change. And then there are people with white hair like me, who've been in it for years and years together. And we believe the way we do it is the only way we do it. Right? So we have to start looking at these things very differently. And there are enough, and I can tell you, and Dr. Sasi Prabha, if you're open for it, we are using an ERP cum LMS, a very comprehensive solution, which takes care of a lot of things that you were mentioning. And it is not as money draining as what Dr. Sharad was saying. It is not that costly a solution. Very useful, flexible system. They have worked, I think, pretty closely with 50, 60 different university partners. And I keep on telling my team, I said, we have to use the biggest power that solution has, rather than trying to beat it down to earth and making it work the way I want to work. So if you look at what you asked, and what are the new things or what are the unique things which technology has brought to us in higher education this time, I think it has really opened our eyes. It has really opened our eyes because we had no choice. We had no choice. And people who have not chosen are people who are in trouble today. So, because I was forced to make a choice and I made a choice, now I should be intelligent enough and innovative enough to relook at the way I am doing things, to work with my teams and ensure, and as you said, the collaborative working. So collaboration is not just within the people who work in the higher education sector. It is also between the faculty, the professors, and the students. Today, believe me, what Dr. Sasi Prabha was saying, the faculty's real power can be used if you support them and make them comfortable with the new technology that is coming in place. And I'll tell you, students are possibly 5-10 steps ahead of us when it comes to using technology or understanding the new tools and all that. You take a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old child, you give him an iPhone, and you give the same iPhone to a 45-year-old person sitting next to him, you see who's more comfortable. That is direct proof. Forget 17-year-old, you pick up a 10, 12-year-old kid and give them an iPhone. Our house help, his son is just about 7 years. And one day he's showing my wife, come auntie, I'll show you what apps I have. And he was showing her some 20, 30 different apps, which we didn't even know of and how they are to be used. The kids today are far more comfortable doing their online classes of school than some of the faculty who are not comfortable in even, controlling whether the student should be given the right to speak, not speak, should he be kept on mute, should he be kept with video on or video off. So I think we should now very seriously work and invest in bringing up our faculty to be more comfortable with the beautiful technology that we have all around. And that will, I think, if Dr. Satiprabha is feeling that, the research becomes faster and other benefits, once we start investing in the people to become comfortable with technology, believe me, you will see a 10-fold change.
Yes, sir.
It will not be increment. It will be a multiplier effect. I hope I've been able to answer some bit of what you...
No, thank you so much, Mr. Sudhanshu. Thank you so much. You have actually talked about opening the eyes, and of course, this pandemic has opened many an eyes. Even an old guard like me, I have become abreast to various technology in these 1.5 years time, which I never thought of I would be. So point is that the best of the faculties and professors were also troubled initially. Talked about the various generations, sir. I fully agree with you. And we have to give our professors that space in which they can learn, in which they can understand, and they would do miracles. They have already done miracles in the past 1.5 years. I call them Corona warriors, along with the security forces and the health workers. They are also Corona warriors. All are faculty members of schools, colleges, universities. So now
let me just add one more sentence, if you will permit
Sir.
me. I see what has happened in the last 1.5 years to be a very big equalizer. If we learn from what we have gone through in the last 15 years, I think that world or the time where people would have an ego and therefore would not do many things the way they could be done, those days are gone. That is why I call it an equalizer. That I now cannot sit and say the only way to do it is my way.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. And now I move over to Dr. Sharad. Sir, in your opinion, how are the educational institutions, including colleges and universities, how are they creating a forward-looking leadership by redesigning their learning modules? What are the ways in which they are redesigning their learning modules to create a forward-looking leadership, and vice versa?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question, because we are actually seized of these questions nowadays, and I can only narrate what experiences we are going through. I think journey is ongoing. We can talk about transformation and processes and digital transformation and so on, and the support it can offer in this age of pandemic, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic also. But all these efforts are not going to yield good results unless all the stakeholders involved are adequately trained in skills and their attitude, both. Because people sometimes are diffident to change even a small amount, delta X, as we say in engineering. So we have a big challenge in ensuring that stakeholders, which mainly includes faculty, students, and the staff which is there, of course leadership also included in that, are ready to receive these changes. And that's a big challenge that we are facing, because we have a Oracle HCM at our core HR functions here. And we have good modules, which are training modules and performance management modules and succession planning and so on. But we have a very solid training department, which actually has assessed over the last 2 years training needs. They have carried out a very good training needs analysis. for different stakeholders and come to a conclusion as to what sort of programs we should run for each of these sections of the higher education sector. So, for example, especially for teachers, when we started off the pandemic in 2020, not many of us were using online tools to the extent that are required now. So we had to have a lot of input on how to teach and learn online. So for that, Coursera helped us a lot. Our own training programs, which we had, helped us a lot. How to basically teach and learn online and engage students, because keeping engaged students is a very big challenge nowadays, even for face-to-face delivery. For online learning, one can switch off a video and you don't know what the student is doing. We had a professor who came from USA and he was also doing it for about 3-4 months. By August, he said, I'm so unhappy with all this, what is happening, because I don't know what is happening on the other side. I'm just going on talking. I can intervene, a class of 60 is there. Suddenly I ask someone, the entire class goes silent, video is on, off. I don't know, learning is happening on the other side or no. That's a big challenge. So this has been one important thing that has thrown to us. Training faculty for teaching and learning online. That's the first important thing. Second important thing for us has been how to assess, how to set a question paper, how to assess, how to evaluate. That has been the biggest challenge as far as I am concerned from the faculty members, because to set a paper online, to maintain the integrity of the exam, and to ensure that there is no plagiarism or no collaboration the way we want. Yes, there can be a question paper which can encourage collaboration, but in some papers where we don't want collaboration, we want the answer after someone thinks. So integrity of the exams has been the biggest challenge for us. And therefore, we had a second model which was also run by some training institutes for us, and that was how to assess and evaluate online. That's a very important thing. And somehow our students, do not maintain the integrity of the exam. So, we had a big challenge in that. We somehow conquered it. I must say we are not satisfied with it, because there is nothing like a face-to-face exam where a student writes, even if he comes to the classroom or a computer lab, does his work on his own. We are not able to find a solution to that unless there is one-to-one remote proctoring, which is very difficult in our case. We also conducted our online entrance exam, which also had its own challenges. So all these required a lot of training for our faculty, staff, and students also, because every time we had a different way of conducting an exam, sending a Google Sheet, downloading, copying, uploading, all that. It required a lot of training for all these stakeholders. And that was the biggest challenge. Ensuring that learning happens on the other side, ensuring the assessment is fair, transparent, and maintained with integrity, evaluation of it. That's a big challenge. And the third important thing is, we find in India, we just go on taking exams, midterm 1, midterm 2, end semester, result, next semester, midterm 1, midterm 2, exam, and so on. This cycle for engineering, say for 8 semesters, management for 6 trimesters, and all that goes on. But we never give a good feedback to the students that, yes, the midterm 1 is conducted, you did well in this, you did not do well in this, here are the things where you can improve, here are the things where you need attention, and this is good with you, this you can improve, this is the way you can improve. That is one important thing that online learning can do to us, and giving importantly periodical, appropriate, timely feedback to the students. These are the things, important things that we have learned from this time, and we are trying to implement it in a small way, identifying these problems, identifying a fast learner, slow learner as required for accreditation, also ensuring that the outcomes that we require in all processes are attained, evaluation is there, and maintaining the integrity of the teaching, learning, and evaluation. These are being the main challenges, and therefore we have set a calendar now for every month. If you look from the last 1.5 years, our training department has set a calendar for every month. And there are topics for simple topics like advanced Excel, domain expertise in different things, maybe Python, maybe using visualization techniques and so on, so that everybody who wants to join a training program can get upgraded based on the needs that they have expressed. And that's been a very good thing. This has helped us in the university to increase our efficiency and being more effective as far as delivery is concerned, learning and evaluation is concerned. So that has been the important thing as far as redesign the learning models are concerned. But to my experience in the end, I could say that online learning has not given a big satisfaction to us. We always feel that blended learning is the best way to go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Sharad. In fact, the way you have enunciated things, I think we are all agree and we are in the same boat. We have talked about how the students on the other side of the wing have been, say, behaving. In fact, one of my faculty members reported that without a video, one student had joined by the nickname of Donald Duck, and he never knew who that individual was. So somehow he found out later on, and he had taken that student to task by on phone. Anyway, sir, of course, evaluating, setting question papers, these have been very tough times for all of us, and faculty need to be motivated and trained, as all of us agree upon. Now, I would move on to Dr. Sasi Prabha. Ma'am, as a Vice-Chancellor, let me ask you a direct question. What are your ways of building operational excellence in your university?
Okay. So I was just thinking of answering your previous question. Okay, I'll answer the next. Sir, you all know, because universities now should be a research intensive universities. Otherwise, we cannot excel. So this teaching learning alone will not support the institutions to excel in the global arena or in the national arena. Suppose, see, we are all giving importance for NARF ranking, accreditations, NB accreditation or NAC accreditation. So whatever rankings or ratings or accreditation, if you want to go, apart from academics, we need to excel in different areas. Mainly in publications, we should improve the publication. At the same time, we have to improve the quality of publications. In the best practices, what we are adopting in our institution is that we do encourage faculty members to do more publications, because we are bothered about both quality and quantity. If at all a faculty member is publishing in quality journal with high impact publications, in that event, then every year during Teachers' Day, we award the faculty with the cash award. Say, for example, if he is publishing with more than 5 impact factor journal, we are giving 25,000 per paper. Similarly, with 3 to 5, we are giving 15,000. 1 to 2 impact factor, we are giving 10,000. And less than 1, we are giving 5,000. A faculty who are publishing with no impact factor, we are not giving cash award. Okay. So like that, we are trying to increase the number of quality publications, because that is a very, very mandate now. So this continuous motivation and encouragement from our management in terms of allocating this much fund for awarding faculty members only for publication has supported us to reach the H index to 73. The span of 5 years, we have taken this exercise for the around 5 to 6 years back. We started this exercise. We could able to increase the number of publications. The Scopus Index publications is now more than, it has crossed 10,000, and Web of Science Index publications has crossed 5,000. And this year alone is concerned, we have got around 289 publications in high impact journals. So like that, the cumulative citation is also increasing. So it is actually indirectly and directly impacting in different arenas. Like ranking, it is impacting, even accreditation everywhere. Because now ranking or rating agencies are not asking us to give publications. They themselves are taking from resources, index databases. So in that way, this is the one practice we are doing. And then now we know all our authorities are more bothered about products. So institutions, 5 years back, they are expecting the institutions to be good teaching institutions or teaching learning. They are focusing now. The institutions should innovate, and they have to solve the problems identified in the villages. So government is taking so much of measures. The UBA initiative is actually taken to solve the problems identified in the nearby villages, adopted villages. So like that, universities should give solutions to the prevailing problems in the society or in the industries. So that's what everybody are looking at, like a developed countries, universities. So we do allot certain fund for seed fund. So every year, twice we are giving the announcement. So the faculty and student, the team of faculty and students who are coming out with good innovative ideas towards developing certain products. Then we are encouraging them with whatever amount they are asking. We are funding maximum of 20 lakhs, up to 20 lakhs we are funding per or project. And we have a stringent mechanism to continuously monitor their progress. And we see to that they could able to finally end up with their product. And like that, we have got around 20 products in hand for ready for commercialization. So this is one kind of initiative we are doing. And then research centers to promote research in various areas of specialized areas of science and technology. We established research centers in association with industries as well as with the R&D organizations. And we are recruiting scientists exclusively to promote research in the particular periods, particular areas where we are giving less teaching load for them and more research for them, which is actually supporting us in submitting good proposals and getting more grants from funding agencies. So these are all the ways we have taken forward. That is actually giving a good result. That's why our institution is placed in top 50 for the 6th consecutive year in the NRF ranking is concerned. So this year we are the top 40. Like that, since from the inception of NIRF, we are participating in NIRF ranking, the university ranking, we are in the top 50 for the 6th consecutive years. So just this is my experience. So coming to your previous question, so this technological intervention or technological usage of technology in the institutions after this post-pandemic really supported us in doing more collaborative activities than sending a faculty or a student from our institution to other partnering institutions. So they could able to do the experiments in their respective institutions, but the collaboration was now easy without any cost or without spending any cost. They can able to have a good interactions and joint publications are possible through this. And it is actually supporting the involvement of students also in doing a lot of collaborative activities. But we should have a clear focus where we want to do. And now we are focusing on developing more startups from the institutions. So that because there is a gray area, I think most of the private institutions are not addressed so far because it has got its own way to do a startups. So though we have an incubator, we have a lot of incubators in institutions, and we need to have more startups to be developed, and we need to do more technology transfer. So this area we are concentrating now.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for telling us about the innovative initiatives you have taken in terms of operational excellence, in terms of publication, research, promoting startups, so many things you have done. So we are very, it was thoughtful of you to have given us these tips so that we can carry forward in our universities as well. So I think we are running out of time now. So instead of requesting, since all of us have talked about the topic earlier, what I would just say is that it has been a good takeaway for all of us from what you have just said about this technical and tech collaborations. We have talked about digital, say, transformation. We have talked about so many things. Basically, the processes, the collaboration, which are important for bringing about such transformation, which would be beneficial for the institutions and the society. So thank you so much for this wonderful session today. My sincere thanks to all the distinguished panelists, Mr. Sudhanshu, Dr. Sharad, Dr. Sasi Prabha. I would now hand over the platform to Mr. Rahul Binoy. Mr. Binoy, your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Ajay sir. And that was such a wonderful deliberation, quite an insightful one. And really, I'd like to thank all the eminent speakers for taking some time out of their busy schedule to be here with us on this wonderful forum. It was such a delight hosting you all. Sudhanshu sir, Sharad sir, Sasi Prabha ma'am and Abhay sir, as always, you did a wonderful job moderating the whole session. It was such an honor, pleasure hosting you all. And I really hope you two all had a wonderful time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you all.
Abhay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sharat.
Thank you so much once
Thank you
again.
so much, sir.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.